Chapter 847. Most importantly, his blood started to condense, form and strengthen rapidly after he started cultivating. Coupled with the energy from the meteoric tear, his blood started to strengthen and recover. With blood circulating throughout his body, Wang Feng's body started to regain its sense of touch. The ferocious mouth on his heart started to itch. The flesh on his chest started to grow again. Compared to the meteoric tear, Wang Feng was astonished by its recovery speed. With his current state and body condition, he was able to recover so quickly. Wang Feng felt that he would not die in the future. After an unknown period of time. It could be a few days or more than 10 days. Wang Feng finally felt the existence of soul power. In the next moment, Wang Feng opened his eyes. He had been looking inside himself and finally saw the scene in front of him. The blue sea. Because his body was glowing, he could still see the situation around him. Fortunately, Wang Feng had activated his Misty Shadow Soul skill and did not attract any strong aquatic soul beasts. Golden Lotus, Wang Feng looked at his chest. The meteoric tear was still glowing faintly. Even the flesh around it had grown back. In the center, there was a model of a heart made from blood. The half-secret word allowed Wang Feng to recover quickly. Wang Fengxin heaved a sigh of relief. He felt that his body was still weak. His heart had not been completely rebuilt, so it was still weak. Without thinking much, Wang Feng activated the Golden Lotus and urged it to speed up his recovery. Finally, under the effects of the half-secret word, the Golden Lotus and the meteoric tear, Wang Feng closed his eyes and felt the pain in his heart. He knew that his heart was starting to be rebuilt. The model of the heart made from blood seemed to be adding bricks and tiles. A faint layer of soul power barrier isolated Wang Feng from the surrounding seawater. As his heart was being rebuilt, the numbness and itchiness made Wang Feng feel very comfortable. He could not help but cry out. Boundless life energy surged out from the meteoric tear. Wang Feng was surprised to find that after cultivating the half-secret word, he could activate the energy in the meteoric tear more effectively. This made Wang Feng feel a little strange. Previously, the meteoric tear was like a passive, beautiful girl. It would only give you a little sweetness when you were thirsty. But now, the meteoric tear was like an active and seductive woman. With a gentle tease, it could give you a sweet taste. The only benefit was that it could increase Wang Feng's soul power rank even faster. This was a huge benefit for Wang Fengla. After level 80, Wang Feng had a premonition that cultivating to level 90 would be a long process. But even so, the development of the meteoric tear was still too small. It still contained a special law of life. That thing was the most precious thing, but Wang Feng couldn't comprehend it. He had tried to use his psychic power to enter the meteoric tear, hoping to probe the magical laws of life it contained. Unfortunately, even with his spiritual energy, it was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no reaction at all. It could only be said that Wang Feng was still too weak. Or perhaps the meteoric tear was not completely pieced together to form a whole piece. Perhaps when my mental energy becomes truly solid, I'll be qualified to enter the meteoric tear and sense some of the laws of life. Wang Feng pondered. In the world of star transformation, generally, comprehending this law was a trace of it. It seemed to take thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. His thoughts on the meteoric tear stopped here for the time being. I'll think about it again when my mental energy condenses into a true solid state. After I recover my state, I might go to the extreme north and let Odontosuchus and the rest find out where that million-year soul beast is. Wang Feng thought, after all, once a million-year soul beast is born, it will definitely not be simple. It's easy to find it among soul beasts. But Wang Feng thought for a while. With his current strength, it seemed a little difficult to kill a million-year soul beast. Unless Wang Feng cultivated the esoteric character to the large success stage, he would be able to use the Pangu Axe's blood burst attack at will while using the esoteric character to recover blood. Thinking of this, Wang Feng felt that it seemed a little shameless, because the Pangu Axe's blood burst attack was really deadly. When he was fighting with Bibidon previously, it was really a close call. He relied on his stronger mental energy to barely control it. If he were to become stronger, the Pangu axe would definitely become stronger, and he might not be able to control it. Every time he used the blood burst attack, it was equivalent to suicide. It was no different from self-destruction. But if he had the esoteric character to recover blood, wouldn't it be like a perpetual motion machine? But, to cultivate this secret technique to the large success stage, how long would it take? Wang Feng shook his head. Even now, Wang Feng had only comprehended the esoteric character to a small success stage. So it was just a thought. A true million-year soul beast would definitely not be much weaker than Bibidon. Or self-destructing and using the blood burst attack was somewhat possible. But this also meant that the danger would be greatly increased. Bibidon was still alright this time. It attacked the heart. If it directly attacked the head did not have the meteoric tear and his mental energy had not condensed into a solid state. Wang Feng's soul was not strong enough to survive after his head exploded. Even if he barely survived without consciousness, he would not be able to cultivate the esoteric character. I need to plan properly. Otherwise, I will not be able to break through. Speaking of which, my Sea God's second exam did not give me a God-bestowed soul ring. It seems that the Sea God really noticed the upper limit of my soul ring absorption. I have already reached 1,000,000 year. While thinking in his heart, he quickly reconstructed his heart. Thinking of this, Wang Feng curled his lips. Is it because I can't afford to play? The difficulty of his second exam was much harder than Ning Rongrong and the rest's final exam. Ning Rongrong and the rest had 2 God-bestowed soul rings. If the Sea God could not afford to play, Wang Feng could not do anything. He could not find trouble with him, right? That would be too arrogant. Wait until he reached level 90. At level 80, he could exchange blows with Bibidon, who was half a step into the God realm. Forcefully using the blood burst attack of the Pangu axe could suppress Bibidon. If it self-destructed, it could even cause harm to his life. At level 90, he should be able to exchange blows with a true god? However, Wang Feng was not too sure about the strength of a true god. Perhaps there was a misjudgment. Moreover, Wang Feng did not intend to use the blood burst attack of the Pangu axe, at least before his mental energy reached a solid state and he could slightly control it. Or perhaps before he reached a higher level of the esoteric character, Wang Feng did not intend to use it. Just as Wang Feng was slowly recovering, he did not know what had happened to the continent at this time. End of chapter. Chapter 848. In the Great Star Doe Forest. As the largest soul beast forest on the continent, its vastness was greater than that of the 2 empires combined. There were countless core regions in the forest. At this moment, in one of the core regions, in a space shrouded in a hazy black fog, there was not a single trace of energy flow, as if it was a soul-sealing domain. A terrifying aura suddenly emerged from the center of this region. A crimson pillar of light suddenly rose from this position and shot straight into the clouds. It seemed to connect heaven and earth. The muffled ancient voice resounded in this space. If someone was standing in the air at this moment, they would be able to hear it. There were many soul beasts in this region. They were of different sizes, but most of them were 10,000-year soul beasts. There was even the aura of a 100,000-year soul beast at the very front. There were so many 10,000-year and 100,000-year soul beasts in this unknown core region. If Wang Feng were here, he would be able to see a soul beast that he was very familiar with. It was a powerful soul beast with 9 heads and 6 arms, and the body of a snake. This was because this soul beast was the same soul beast he had encountered when he was searching for the headless general after absorbing the 5-headed stellar dragon. At this moment, this soul beast was standing at the very front. Its 9 heads were facing the pillar of light in front of it, and it was roaring excitedly as if it were celebrating the birth of a king. The black pillar of light that caused heaven and earth to tremble gradually turned red, and then a faint reddish-gold color. The other soul beasts of all shapes and sizes began to roar even louder in response to the 9-headed snake soul beast's call. After a short while, the reddish-gold light gradually disappeared. A figure slowly walked out from within the black fog. At the same time, in another lake in the great Star Doe forest, De Ming's enormous body slowly rose from the lake, and Ming was grooming his fur at the edge of the lake. Almost at the same time, 4 pairs of huge eyes looked into the distance. Ming, did you feel that? De Ming's voice was heavy. That's not an ordinary soul beast's aura. When those 200,000-year soul beasts suddenly attacked us, I felt that something was off. De Ming was referring to the 5-headed star dragon and the headless general. That seems to be a soul beast that's much stronger than us. Don't tell me it's the boss of those 2 soul beasts? Ming gripped the staff beside him. In that case, the last time the 2 soul beasts had attacked them, they hadn't appeared out of nowhere. It was obvious that this soul beast was much stronger than the one before. And from the looks of it, things didn't look good. No matter what, we can't leave our homeland alone, a deep and low voice reverberated in the lake, deep sea. Wang Feng, who had been recovering with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes and looked into the distance. A strange feeling surged into his heart. Could it be that million-year soul beast? Wang Feng frowned slightly. It was a wonderful feeling. He originally thought that he would have to make a trip to the extreme north and ask Odontosuchus and the others to help him find the million-year soul beast. But now, a strange feeling appeared in his heart. Maybe it's the feeling the system gave me that allowed me to find that million-year soul beast? Wang Feng had a rough idea, but then he thought of something. No, is this a warning from the anterior secret art? This inexplicable feeling was similar to the previous 2 times. After thinking for a long time, Wang Feng felt that it might have come from the anterior secret art, and not from the system. If the system had given him a warning, it would have told him in his mind. What kind of danger is this? Who is it related to? Wang Feng looked in that direction. Although it's faint, it's so clear. The strength of a million-year soul beast was extremely dangerous for anyone who encountered it. If he cultivated the anterior secret art to a higher level, he should be able to predict more clearly. After thinking for a while, Wang Feng looked at his heart that was mostly recast. Wang Feng estimated that it would take at most a few days for his heart to be completely recast. And after recast, his heart would be even stronger. This was because his blood essence had been cleansed and became purer under the cultivation of the esoteric secret art. He had recovered more than half of his strength. By the time his heart was recast, Wang Feng had recovered to his peak state. But the strange thing was that although he had not fully recovered, Wang Feng felt that he was much stronger than before. After thinking about it for a while, Wang Feng realized that the soul ring reward had reached a limit. His first 3 soul rings had undergone huge changes. First of all, his 3rd soul ring had reached 100,000 years. To be precise, it was 120,000 years. His original 3rd soul ring was a 30,000-year thorny Xuanwu turtle. After checking in at the Rakshasa secret realm, his first 3 soul rings had increased by 20,000 years. After passing the sea god exam, his soul rings had increased by 15,000 years. After checking in at the sea god's island, all his soul rings had increased by 40,000 years. After the sea god's 2nd exam, all his soul rings had increased by 20,000 years. In total, they had increased to more than 120,000 years. His first soul ring was originally only 6,000 years, but after checking in twice, his soul ring had reached 10,000 years. After the subsequent check-ins, after the sea god's exam, it had just reached 100,000 years. His 2nd soul ring was a 10,000-year Aisya Emperor lizard. After the additional increase, it had also reached 100,000 years. Only then did Wang Feng realize that his soul rings had unknowingly increased to 100,000 years. The main reason was that the Sea God's Island and the second Sea God exam had increased the age of his soul rings by too much. Wang Feng put on a long robe again from the soul tool. He let out a shrill cry and his heart glowed. 7 soul rings on his body suddenly lit up. 7 red soul rings. Furthermore, the color gradually darkened. There was not much difference between the first and second soul rings, but the third and fourth soul rings gradually darkened. Especially the fifth and sixth soul rings. These two were the ice dragon whale and the starry 5-headed dragon. The Sea God's Island and the Sea God's exam rewards had increased all his soul rings. Of these 2 soul rings, the ice dragon whale was originally only 90,000 years, but the reward later increased by 20,000 years to 110,000 years. After the subsequent check-ins, the Sea God's exam increased by 90,000 years and 5,000 years, making it more than 200,000 years. His 6th soul ring, the starry 5-headed dragon's soul ring, was even more than 200,000 years. Wang Feng was like a glowing arrow, shooting out from the bottom of the sea. His entire body was still shining brightly. If it weren't for his Shadowmas soul skill concealing most of his aura with his current state, he would have attracted a lot of sea spirit beasts. Unknowingly, all my soul rings are red, although the first 3 have only reached 100,000 years. Wang Feng muttered to himself. End of this chapter. Chapter 849. The increase in soul rings placed an even greater burden on his body, but thankfully, it was given to him by the system or the Sea God's test, so he could easily adapt to it. The improvements brought about by the all-red soul rings were quite significant in terms of soul skills. However, no second soul skill was born. Instead, he used it on his first soul skill, making it even more powerful. Perhaps this was the effect of the system's upgrade. There wasn't a second soul skill, but it was all used on one soul skill. For example, the soul-devouring blood wings had gained the ability to teleport after gaining a 20,000-year soul ring for the first time. In reality, it was more like a soul skill. However, it wasn't a 100,000-year soul skill, so it was still in the soul-devouring blood wings. This was why the soul-devouring blood wings didn't give birth to a second soul skill after they were upgraded to 100,000 years. Instead, they were strengthened. Similarly, the current situation was the same. A soul skill that already had many functions didn't give birth to a second soul skill. Instead, it strengthened the original soul skill. For example, the deified soul skill, the soul-devouring blood wings soul skill, and the thorny lotus soul skill. His second soul ring didn't give birth to any special soul skills either. It only strengthened the Icefire Furious Lotus. Even a transcendent Douluo wouldn't be able to withstand it if he used it now. If he used the Iceflame Fury Lotus, any titled Douluo below rank 99 would be severely injured. It was important to know that this wasn't a single-target soul skill, but an area of effect soul skill. It was already ridiculous to have such strength. Moreover, its range could cover more than 3,000 meters. In terms of attack range and range, it was second only to the Netherism Flying Sword. The strength of 100,000-year soul skill would increase by leaps and bounds. At the very least, he would be able to keep up with Wang Feng's other abilities. Because merely the Netherism Flying Sword was already formidable to the extreme under the effect of Wang Feng's formidable spiritual energy. He could even insta-kill a titled Doulu. It could be said that he could truly take someone's head from thousands of meters away. Even the deep-sea demonic whale could be injured by the Xianming Flying Sword. Although the quantity of Wang Feng's spiritual power had decreased after being compressed, its quality had increased, and its power had also increased. Even when facing an expert at the level of the 1,000 Dao flow, it would still be able to bring about great trouble and injuries. Now that Wang Feng's other soul skills had been upgraded to 100,000-year rank, Their strength had reached the same level. As an amplification-type soul skill, it was called divinization. At level 80, players could increase all of their basic attributes by 8 times. Although the increase in basic attributes didn't mean that their combat power would increase by 8 times, it did mean that all of their basic attributes would increase. It was equivalent to an 8-fold increase in the body's whiteness value. All of Wang Feng's amplification soul skills were basically doubled for every 10 rank. Take the soul-devouring blood wings for example. Because it came from the god-slaying spear, its attack power would be doubled. Apart from that, the 100,000-year deified soul skill didn't increase in strength, but it gave him an additional immunity to instant death. Wang Feng wasn't sure what effect this ability had, but thinking about it, it should be useful. His third soul skill, Thorny Lotus, boosted his defensive and rebounding abilities. In fact, now that he thought about it, when he fought Bibidon, the reason why he was able to tie with Bibidon with the Pengu axe was not only because of the Pengu axe's own strength, but also because Bibidon would have to bear a huge rebounding force. However, this kind of rebound was often calculated by Wang Feng into the power of the Pengu axe, because every attack was triggered at the same time. As a result, every strike of the Pengu axe contained a terrifying amount of power. If Wang Feng's strength was divided into different levels, White Slate's first-grade state didn't require any amplification. With the current strength of his body, his pure strength was terrifying. Wang Feng could even kick a titled Douluo below rank 96 like a ball. Probably not many could take a punch from Wang Feng. Wang Feng could also kick a titled Douluo above rank 96 and below rank 99 like a ball after activating the various forms of the chaotic green lotus. It wasn't impossible for him to smash them into smithereens with a single punch. This should be considered a second-grade state. Rank 99, such as the Thousand Streams and Possessi, were more troublesome. He had to be more serious, activating the chaotic green lotus martial soul true body, coupled with the power of the blood patterns and the dark angel martial soul possession. Even in the sky or the sea, he could easily defeat them. It was the limit of third grade. Above that were demigods like Qian Renxue and Bibidon. With Wang Feng's Pengu axe combined with the empty realm state, he could only fight to a draw without using the explosive blood attack. Now, with the enhancement of his red soul rings, he could suppress them. However, Bibidon didn't activate his martial soul true body back then. If he used the explosive blood attack, it would be a matter of life and death. It was a fourth-grade state that exceeded the limit. Self-created offensive techniques like the mysterious underworld flying sword, the chaotic 8 notes, and the absolute wind and thunder spear were not considered in this grade. However, no matter which of these 3 techniques, their power could cause great damage to titled Douluo below rank 99. Especially with the mysterious underworld flying sword. With Wang Feng's current spiritual power, he could kill enemies thousands of meters away. During these days of recovery, Wang Feng had been comprehending the cultivator's secret word and didn't cultivate the front secret word. Hence, his spiritual power didn't compress much and was still a pool. The enhancement brought by the red soul rings was not small. To be able to reach this level of strength at level 80 was another limit for Wang Feng. Before the next time he checked in, the only way to improve was to obtain a million-year soul ring and reach rank 90. Or increase the power of his self-created soul skills. As for after rank 90, that would probably be a new chapter. With the meteoric tier's secret word, Wang Feng's soul power could barely reach rank 80 and maintain it for a while. However, he would probably have to rely on the cauldron of heaven and earth to refine soul crystals for his cultivation. Now that he had sensed the danger premonition of a million-year soul beast, he could roughly tell that it was in the Great Star Dough Forest. I'll go to the Great Star Dough Forest first and see what's going on. After that, I'll go to the extreme north to take a look. The reconstruction of my heart should be completed soon, at most 10 days. Wang Feng touched his chest. The hole had already disappeared, and the flesh on the surface had already regenerated. Only the model of his heart was still slowly solidifying. He had recovered more than half of his strength, and had even become stronger. As he looked at the boundless sea, Wang Fengxin knew that it was time to leave. After 3 years in the sea, Wang Feng could finally return to the sea. Wang Feng flapped his blood-red wings and flew into the distance with instant teleportation. With Wang Feng's current speed, if he used the Dark Angel's possession, his 14 black light wings would be even faster than the 1,000 streams. In less than 2 days, Wang Feng could see the sea level. As he had been blasted into the sea by the Bibidan's final attack, and drifted with the sea for a period of time, Wang Feng wasn't sure where he was exactly. He could only rely on the sense of danger in his heart to determine that he was heading towards the great Star Do forest. There seemed to be a city on the sea level in the distance. It looked extraordinary. However, the strange thing was that there was a dense blood-red cloud floating in the sky above the city. End of this chapter. Chapter 850. Why does this thing seem so familiar? What a strong aura! It's only slightly weaker than the 1,000 Dao stream. Damn, I remember now. This is the King of Massacre? Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. Back then, in the City of Massacre, Tang San used the Swan's Kiss immortal herb to destroy the source of the City of Massacre, the blood pool, and increase its toxicity. Those people in the City of Massacre liked to drink Bloody Mary, and this Bloody Mary came from this blood pool. Everyone in the City of Massacre was probably dead. Could this King of Massacre be here for revenge? Then, has he found his enemy? I remember that the King of Massacre was Tang Qin in the original novel. Oh no, Hu Laina. Wang Feng seemed to have thought of something, and quickly flew forward. At the same time, he used his spiritual power, and a mysterious underworld flying sword pierced through the clouds at an even faster speed. If the King of Massacre had met Tang San, there shouldn't have been such a bloody cloud. This was because Tang San had the Sea God's inheritance and the Sea God's trident. Furthermore, he was Tang Chen's great-grandson. No matter what, he wouldn't have killed Tang San. There was a high chance that he had woken up. However, if he had met Hu Laina, he would be in trouble. Now, the progress of Tang San's group and Hu Laina's group had been messed up by him. Wang Feng was sure that the King of Massacre had met Hu Laina. Hu Laina couldn't die no matter what. At the same time, in the city below the blood cloud, this was a coastal city. Below, there was a square and there were corpses everywhere. Most of the surrounding buildings had been destroyed. It seemed that there had been an intense battle. In the center of the square, there were dozens of soul masters and even 2 titled Douluo lying on the ground. Blood flowed like a stream and filled the cracks in the stone ground. The 2 titled Douluo, the Ghost Douluo and the Chrysanthemum Douluo, were bleeding profusely. Their soul rings were faintly discernible, and their auras were extremely unstable. On the other side, there were several soul Douluo and more than 10 soul masters above rank 60. Most of them were dead. Behind the 2 titled Douluo, Hu Laina was lying on the ground with a pale look on her face. She was clutching her chest and lower abdomen. Beside him were Evil Moon and Flame, the 2 of them who had left the Sea God's Island with Bibi Dong's group after the incident at the Sea God's Island. However, his entire body was riddled with injuries. Half a month had passed since the incident on the Sea God's Island. Tang San had left the coastal city a few days ago. That day, after Hu Laina finished speaking, she returned to the city and continued to pretend to patrol the coast. That was until Qian Rinxue brought 3 titled Douluo over to ask about the situation. However, there was still no sign of Tang San and the others. Qian Rinxue did not even bother and returned to Martial Spirit City directly. Only the 2 titled Douluo Gui and Ju were left behind to observe for a few more days. If they didn't find Tang San and the others, they would immediately retreat to Martial Spirit City. After all, there had been no news for so long. They must have come ashore in advance. However, just as Hulaina was about to follow the two titled Douluo and retreat from the defensive line, the King of Massacre had appeared. Elders, please return to Martial Spirit City and report to teacher. Hulaina coughed a few times. Her eyes were gloomy and her tone was calm. Just say that Laina didn't complete the mission and didn't catch Tang San. Bring my brother and Flame back. He's here to kill me. It has nothing to do with you. Hulaina looked at the hazy figure in front of her in the boundless blood light. There was a huge bat-like wing on his back. The King of Massacre was terrifyingly strong. The other party also had the Killing God domain, but it was much stronger than her Killing God domain. It was on a completely different level. In the other party's domain, she couldn't even use her soul skills. It was the same for the two elders. The domain covered by the blood light made it difficult for the two elders to even use their martial soul fusion skills. It was a complete one-sided suppression. Those bloodthirsty eyes were filled with incomparable anger. The hoarse voice seemed to come from hell. TSK, none of you can escape. The King of Massacre's face was flushed red, and a strange smile appeared on his face. He looked at Hulaina and the two titled Douluo, who were already at their wits' end. You destroyed my capital of massacre, so I'm going to destroy you too. Other than you, there are two other bastards. Don't worry, I'll kill all of you one by one. I'll suck every drop of blood from your bodies to relieve my current pain. As he said this, the King of Massacre suddenly roared. The sword-shaped demonic pattern between his brows suddenly emitted an even more intense blood light. The ghost Douluo and the chrysanthemum Douluo groaned and retreated quickly. Under the strange Killing God domain, their strength was greatly reduced. They had already killed more than 10 soul sages and a few soul Douluo. They were already very lucky. If the two of them were to fight here, Hulaina, Evil Moon, and the others would die even faster. Elders, let's go. Hulaina said softly. The ghost Douluo and chrysanthemum Douluo looked at each other and frowned. Las Hu, we watched you grow up and become the Pope's disciple. The chrysanthemum Douluo said, you passed the capital of massacre and the Sea God's Islands test. Your potential is limitless. You're the next Pope, and you want us to give up on you and return to the Martial Soul Hall? We can't bear the Pope's anger. Old ghost, what do you think? Same. The ghost Douluo nodded. But I don't want to live anymore. Hulaina muttered, what's the point of saving me? Hearing this, the chrysanthemum Douluo and the ghost Douluo were stunned. Pope Tif's death was a huge blow to the Holy Lady. Initially, the Pope wanted to matchmake the two of them. Over the past few years, they had been together on the Sea God's Island. The two of them had met in the capital of massacre, and Pope Tif had entered the Martial Soul Hall. Their relationship was probably very deep. Furthermore, they had been together on the Sea God's Island for 3 years. At this moment, the King of Massacre's cold and evil voice sounded. You dare to be distracted? Even if the two of you are titled Douluo, you're courting death. Swish, swish. 2 streaks of blood-red light flashed. The King of Massacre's blood-red wings started to spin as he moved. They formed 2 blood-red wings that tore through space. They carried a terrifying aura as they slashed towards the two of them. Bang bang! The two titled Douluo's expressions changed. Just as they circulated their soul power, a blood-red light attacked their spiritual energy. It was very frightening. The sharp blood wing slash instantly shattered the two people's soul power barriers, and directly slashed open a huge bloody wound on their bodies, instantly sending them flying. Boom boom boom. The two of them were sent flying into a house in the distance. They smashed through countless layers of rock, causing several houses to collapse. Seeing this, Hulaina's body shook. She struggled to stand up. However, her soul rings couldn't light up anymore. Evidently, she didn't have much strength left. You have the will to die. It seems like you know your limits. The King of Massacre laughed. Although he didn't have any soul rings, He could unleash a lot of strength with every attack. After speaking, the King of Massacre left an afterimage on the spot. He attacked Hulaina again. His sharp palm was like a scythe. It was about to reap Hulaina's life. However, at this moment, a streak of sword light came from the west. It drew a long arc in midair. It was like a setting sun as it blasted towards the King of Massacre. P.S. How many more updates are there tonight? End of this chapter. Chapter 851. The sword light was like a rainbow. The light green sword light carried a terrifying aura as it blasted towards the King of Massacre. Almost at the first moment, that enormous sword ray caused the King of Slaughter to be shocked in his heart. A premonition of danger arose in his heart. In the next moment, the King of Massacre's figure suddenly stopped. He was less than a few meters away from Hulaina. The huge blood-red light seemed to be unable to stop that light green sword light. Instead, when this sword light entered the blood-red light, it seemed to tear a hole in the domain and cut it open. The King of Massacre was shocked. He did not have time to sense who had released this sword light. He immediately used the two bat-like wings on his back to wrap it up, forming a special wing iron wall. The blood-gold light flowed on the wing iron wall, giving it a feeling of indestructibility. This was the King of Massacre's defensive technique. The wings on his back could not only be used for attack, but also for defense. With the support of the domain, unless one was of the same level, one would not be able to break through his defense. However, in the next moment, the light green flying sword carried a long rainbow as it landed on the blood-gold wings. Clang! An ear-piercing sound could be heard. The iron wall formed by the wings was cut open at a speed visible to the naked eye. A huge force landed on the King of Massacre. Without the protection of the wings, the sword light instantly blasted the King of Massacre dozens of meters away, creating a long trench on the ground. Boom! In the end, the King of Massacre crashed into a dilapidated house, causing the entire house to collapse. The light green sword floated in midair, emitting a bright light. Roar! In the ruins that seemed to have collapsed, a loud roar could be heard. At this moment, Hulaina opened her eyes and looked at this scene in a daze. The 2-meter-long green sword that could be called a huge sword was placed in front of her, emitting a cold and heavy aura. The surrounding air seemed to have solidified. Hulaina's pupils shrank slightly. She was a little dazed and confused. This sword, crackle! In the ruins, the King of Massacre's body was emitting a blood-red light. The two bats on his back had a visible wound. Who? The King of Massacre looked at the green sword and roared like thunder. He clearly didn't sense any soul masters. Where did this cyan sword come from? What the hell was that? However, the green longsword didn't waste any time talking to him. A sword light flashed through the air. Swish! Swish! He directly slashed out 7 sword beams. The sword beams formed a sword beam in the air, containing an extremely destructive power. Fear flashed through the King of Massacre's eyes, and the blood-red light around his body became even brighter. He clenched his fists and punched out several times towards the green sword net formed by the 7 sword rays. Every punch contained an extremely dense blood-red light. Every time he threw out a ray of sword light, the power of the sword light would be reduced slightly. However, the green longsword didn't seem to know exhaustion. It pierced through the clouds and exploded with sword light. Then, the sword light slashed down at the King of Massacre. The heart of the King of Slaughter, who had just broken through the sword net, trembled violently. The demonic sword mark between his brows glowed brightly. The majestic power caused his already flushed cheeks to look as if they had been smeared with blood. The blood bats formed an iron wall once again. A blood-red light barrier surged out from the blood bats, forming a second line of defense. However, the green longsword's sword light seemed to be able to slash through a mountain. In an instant, the King of Massacre was annihilated. The entire square trembled. This wasn't a big city, and the people had already retreated. At this moment it was as if there was an earthquake. The King of Massacre supported himself with both hands. His face turned from red to white. The sword light landed on his head, and he barely managed to block it. Pucci, the King of Massacre, spat out a mouthful of blood. As the blood in his body surged, his strength surged. He had no choice but to retreat to the side. Boom! The sword light, which was dozens of meters long, slashed open a several-meter-wide ravine in the middle of the square. The King of Massacre gasped for breath. He looked at the green longsword with horror in his eyes. Who exactly is it? The King of Massacre's eyes were extremely cold. However, no one responded to him. The only thing that responded to him was the long sword that was emitting a green light. Swish! 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 The green longsword attacked the King of Massacre again. The sword light crisscrossed the ruins. The majestic blood-red light released a bloodthirsty aura that made one's heart palpitate. From Hu Laiina's point of view, this scene was extremely strange. The incomparably powerful King of Massacre was completely suppressed by this green longsword that came out of nowhere. The low and sonorous groans and the sound of the ground breaking formed a messy and beautiful background. Hu Laiina looked at this scene as if she was in a dream. Am I dreaming? The powerful King of Massacre was actually forced to this state by a green longsword? In fact, she didn't know that the King of Massacre had not fully displayed his strength at this moment. At this moment, he was only the King of Massacre. The evil and bloodthirsty light had already invaded his consciousness, making it difficult for him to display his true strength. Unless someone could completely purify the blood-red light on his body and restore his consciousness, he would not be able to reveal his true appearance and strength. However, at this moment, Hu Laiina was getting more and more shocked. She felt like she was sleepwalking. This was because she remembered correctly. In the entire continent, the only person who could use such an attack was Sword Dao Qin Xian. Only Pope Diff Wang Wu could do it. Furthermore, the move used by the green longsword seemed to be Qin Xian's 7 killings swordplay. The strange thing was that no one was using it at this moment. It seemed to be used by itself. It was so powerful that it was unbelievable. This was definitely not done by the sword Douluo. He was not that powerful. That green longsword was also not the 7 killing sword. In that case, there was only one possibility. Wang Wu. Wang Wu. Hu Laiina looked around. Even with her eyesight and spiritual power, she couldn't find anyone. After a moment, the King of Massacre was gradually unable to hold on. He looked at the green sword light and a trace of fear flashed across his eyes. Today I will spare your life. The King of Massacre looked at Hu Laiina unwillingly. After that, he roared. His body was covered in sticky and smelly blood. He suddenly spread out and fled in the opposite direction. The green sword light spun in midair, but it didn't chase after him. Hu Laiina was stunned. He was chased away just like that? After a moment, the green longsword seemed to have received an order. It transformed into a ray of light and flew away freely. Hu Laiina, it's you. It's definitely you. You didn't die, Hu Laiina muttered to herself. She wiped the dirt and tears off her face. Her eyes regained some spirit. End of chapter. Chapter 852. On the other side, the green longsword slowly flew several thousand meters away from the city. It was beside a human figure who was heading in the direction of the great star Do forest. It turned into countless streaks of green light and fused with the human figure. It seems like the King of Massacre hasn't met Tang San yet. He hasn't even recovered. This figure was none other than Wang Feng. He didn't even land. Instead, he flew across the city's sky. When the Xianming flying sword hit the King of Massacre, Wang Feng knew that there was no need for him to land. The King of Massacre wasn't strong enough for him to land. When he finished speaking, it was inevitable that he and Hu Laiina would start chattering and weeping. It would be too troublesome to hug and cry then. Wang Feng still had things to do. Naturally, he didn't want to stay. Throughout the entire process, Wang Feng used his strong spiritual power to control the Xianming flying sword and unleashed the modified 7 lethal sword technique. Old Master Jian's 7 lethal sword technique was still useful. Wang Feng only needed to store his soul power in the Xianming flying sword and unleash it with his spiritual power. He could achieve this by condensing the 7 lethal sword in 10. He probably couldn't use the soul power stored in the Xianming flying sword anymore. It was a pity that the King of Massacre wasn't strong now. He was a little like Bibidon before he passed the 8th test. He looked like he was at rank 99, but he could only unleash rank 98 abilities. Also, the evil and bloodthirsty bloody light on the King of Massacre was controlling him. It concealed most of his abilities. The sword-shaped mark between his brows should be the symbol of the god's inheritance. Tang Chen must have been attacked in the god's inheritance. Wang Feng recalled what he sensed with the Xianming flying sword. It wasn't hard to guess. Wang Feng knew Tang Chen's identity. However, he wasn't sure about the specific situation. But if he was a rank 99 peak Douluo, he wouldn't be so weak. He wouldn't be forced to such an extent by his 7 lethal sword technique. Either his abilities were injured, or his consciousness was muddled. He couldn't unleash all his abilities. Most importantly, he didn't even release his soul rings. Otherwise, Wang Feng would have to show himself. But if he recovered, Tang Chen wouldn't have killed Hu Laina. Furthermore, Tang Chen should have been poisoned. When Tang San threw the snow swan's kiss into the blood pool, its toxicity was greatly enhanced. As the King of Slaughter, he would definitely be affected as well. I should be able to cleanse his current state easily with the White Lotus. Wang Feng shook his head. But this is Xiao San's problem. I won't delay your reunion. Just save Hu Laina. Hu Laina did not succeed. The King of Killers must have gone to look for Tang San. His figure gradually shrank in midair, and he gradually left the city. With Wang Feng's current speed, he arrived at the Great Star Do Forest's periphery in less than half a day. In that instant, Wang Feng sensed a unique aura and a premonition of danger. His heart was racing. Although the forward secret word did not allow Wang Feng to foresee the specific situation, the forward secret word did not allow Wang Feng to predict the specific situation. But once it worked, that premonition of danger was absolutely right. But not all of them were spiritual. He didn't have this feeling when he was fighting with the Bibidon. It was so dangerous, yet he didn't have any premonition? After all, he hadn't cultivated the front secret character for long, and it was sometimes ineffective. There was nothing he could do about it. By the way, the Bibidon shouldn't be here, right? Wang Fengxin thought. I remember to ask Whale Shark and the other two to come to the Great Star Do Forest to take a look when they are free. But the 3 of them are aquatic creatures. I think only the Blackwater Crocodile and the Blood Dragon should be able to do it. If Whale Shark is on land, his strength will be greatly reduced. I don't know if he came here. Bibidon's last test is to obtain 200,000-year soul rings as the 10th soul ring. Only then can she become the real Rakshasa god. The last time I fought, she didn't seem to have obtained 100,000-year soul ring. I hope she doesn't come to kill the great Ming dynasty's 2 Ming dynasties. Looking at the Great Star Do Forest in front of him, Wang Fengxin frowned slightly. When Bibidon was a demigod, he couldn't bear it if she became a god now. Could it be that he had to be killed by her again? But when he thought of the evil death light's roar and the expression in Bibidon's eyes, Wang Feng knew that she probably didn't want to kill him. After all, he was her only confidant and knew everything about her. Bibidon, don't mess around, Wang Feng thought for a long time and stepped into the Great Star Do Forest. Not long after entering the Great Star Do Forest, Wang Feng discovered that the Great Star Do Forest was emitting an extremely strange aura. It was energy. The original Great Star Doe forest contained an incomparably fresh aura, and the energy was also more abundant and pure. But now, it was emitting a faint, nauseating aura. Evil thoughts, ignorant and endless evil thoughts. Wang Feng's pupils emitted a bright light, and he seemed to be able to see a faint black fog in this bright light. Could it be that the awakening of the million-year soul beast has triggered this Great Star Doe forest? Wang Feng took a deep breath. Wang Feng had only seen the first part of Douluo's first book, and he had only heard about the later parts. But in this Great Star Doe forest, there were definitely powerful soul beasts that surpassed the Great Ming and the Second Ming. It was just that Douluo's first book didn't mention them. Therefore, Wang Feng wasn't sure. Now, because of his appearance and the changes in the system, something incredible might have appeared in the Great Star Doe forest. A million-year soul beast. Even the deep-sea demon whale didn't seem to have reached a million-year level, and was only infinitely close. A true million-year soul beast meant that soul beasts had stepped into the realm of gods. Wang Feng released his aura and sensed his surroundings, as if he was in tune with all things. He didn't have the innate blue-silver domain that Tang San had. In this world of plants he could maximize his senses, and he could sense all kinds of things through all kinds of plant. But Wang Feng's dustless glass body had become even stronger after being cleansed by the chaotic divine light. The dustless glass body was formed after being tempered by the red lotus karmic fire. It wasn't tainted by any karma, and its body was as clear as glass, comparable to Tang Sanzang's flesh, and could resonate with all things. Whether it was in the forest or in the ocean, Wang Feng's body would attract the attention of countless living beings. Now that his heart had been reforged, his blood essence was even clearer, and his aura was even purer. To put it bluntly, even if his looks were ordinary, he would attract everyone's attention if he was thrown into a crowd, and people couldn't help but want to get close to him. But he was also inhumanely handsome. If he was thrown into a crowd, at this moment, Wang Feng used his spiritual power to connect with all the living beings around him through his aura. It was as if he was in tune with their lives, and he could sense their world. A flower, a leaf, a grass, a tree, a bee, a small snake, a bird. Wang Feng could communicate with them through his spiritual power, and he could share his senses. Invisible threads formed by spiritual power extended from Wang Feng's body like a huge net, and they extended to all the living beings around him. End of chapter. Chapter 853. Damn, this bee actually wants to follow me? Is my charm so great that it transcends the boundaries of creatures? Wang Feng shuddered as he opened his eyes. His eyes flickered. Through perception sharing, Wang Feng could also feel the emotions of many creatures. It seems that I am so handsome that it transcends the boundaries of species. Could there be a race that has a completely opposite aesthetic to humans and thinks that I am ugly? Wang Feng thought for a moment and looked in one direction. He sensed a familiar aura. It was the aura of the blue-silver grass. Wang Feng thought for a moment, picked up a blue-silver grass from the side, put it in his mouth, and walked away. In addition to the aura of the blue-silver grass, Wang Feng also sensed several powerful auras, one of which was Bibidon. Secondly, in addition to the two great Ming, there were several 100,000-year soul beasts. Damn, why are there so many 100,000-year soul beasts? Even a few of them were unbelievably strong. There was also a human with a strange aura. However, Wang Feng couldn't sense it very clearly because it was too far away. The human's whole body was shrouded in black fog. The black fog seemed to condense countless evil thoughts with an extremely powerful aura. If Wang Feng guessed correctly, this human should be the incarnation of a million-year soul beast. And it had just been born. It hadn't been long since the system's upgrade. Wang Feng wasn't sure whether this was caused by the system or originally existing. In addition, Wang Feng found that these soul beasts seemed to be somewhat familiar to Wang Feng, because their aura was very similar to that of the headless divine beast, and the star five-headed dragon. Wang Feng now remembered clearly that when he came to the Great Star Do Forest with a large team of martial spirit palace to capture Xiao Wu, he encountered these two soul beasts fighting with the two great Ming. At that time, he felt strange. When the two great Ming were still alive, why would there be soul beasts fighting with them inexplicably? Thinking of this, Wang Feng quickly walked in that direction. The two great Ming seemed to be surrounded by a circle of soul beasts. Tang San must have sensed it too. Bibidan's target didn't seem to be the two great Ming. It might just be hunting soul beasts in the Great Star Do Forest. Wang Feng's eyes flashed, and he faintly felt that something was wrong. In another place in the Great Star Do Forest, Tang San's figure leaped rapidly in the jungle. His speed was incomparably fast when he was running at full speed. Ever since he left Huliena that day, he had heard Huliena's words. Big Brother Feng is dead? Bullshit. Tang San did not believe it at all. How many times had he died? He didn't believe that Big Brother Feng was really dead. Just as Senior Possessee said, even if they were dead, Big Brother Feng couldn't be dead. When they heard the news, everyone was shocked, especially Ning Rongrong, who almost fainted. Later, under Tang San's persuasion, he reluctantly believed that Wang Feng could not have died. He would definitely show up at some point. At this point, the 9 people, especially Ning Rongrong, finally recovered. Thinking about it later, it made sense. How could Wang Feng die just like that? Therefore, everyone decided to go their separate ways and return to their respective homes to check on the situation. Because the situation on the continent was simply too complicated. The Martial Soul Alliance now had the potential to become the master of the continent. Without using a single soldier, without starting a single war. This was something that none of them expected. They went back to report that they were safe, and at the same time, asked about what had happened on Sea God's Island. After that, they gathered again to discuss countermeasures and find out more about Wang Feng. Although Tang San wanted to revive Xiao Wu, he had not become a titled Douluo yet. He planned to return to the Great Star Do Forest to check on the Great Ming and Air Ming. Then, he would return to the setting Sun Forest's Icefire Yin Yang Well. However, after arriving at the Great Star Do Forest, Tang San felt that something was wrong. Very bad. Brother, I've never seen such a disgusting evil aura in the Great Star Do Forest. Xiao Wu flew out from Tang San's soul ring and frowned as she followed beside Tang San. I'm afraid that some evil soul beasts have appeared in the Great Star Do Forest. I don't know if the Great Ming and Air Ming are in danger. After hearing this, Tang San became even more vigilant. Xiao Wu had lived in the Great Star Do Forest for so long, and this was her home. Even she had never seen something like this. What did this mean? The vast sea cosmic shroud appeared in Tang San's hand, and the triangular vast sea cosmic shroud gently enveloped him. As a safety measure, it could block the senses of many soul beasts. I hope nothing bad happens to them, in the depths of the lake. At this moment, the clear lake was stained with blood. The sky azure bull python and the heaven collapsing giant ape stood back to back. 2 different types of blood stained their bodies and flowed into the lake where they had lived for many years. There were 4 different types of soul beasts around them, all of them glaring at them with hostility. At the forefront was a 9-headed snake soul beast. Speak. How did Old 6 and Old 7 die? The 9-headed snake soul beast let loose a violent roar, and each of its heads repeated the same sentence over and over again. His body was huge. In addition to his 9 heads, he also had 3 arms on his back that looked like spider legs. The spider legs were covered with 1-meter-long thorns that looked like sharp blades. It gave off a very eerie feeling. In terms of size, the 9-headed snake soul beast was not inferior to the Titan giant ape. In fact, it was even slightly more powerful. However, the aura emanating from its body was extremely vicious and sinister, and each of its heads was exuding a sinister aura. None of my business. Ming said in a low, muffled voice. "You've been dead for 2 or 3 years, yet you're only asking me now? If you want to kill me, then just say it. What's the point of wasting time with excuses? You're a soul beast, so why are you acting like a complete idiot like those humans?" The 9-headed snake soul beast. Ming surveyed his surroundings with his bull eyes. These soul beasts were all extremely sinister soul beasts, and they had been targeted not long after that crimson golden pillar of light had appeared. They claimed to be the brothers of the 5-headed star dragon and the headless divine beast. However, Ming knew that things weren't that simple. Aside from this 9-headed snake, there were 3 other soul beasts. They were situated in 4 different directions around the lake. The one at the forefront was a 9-headed snake, while the one to its left was a black rhinoceros that was leisurely drinking water. This rhinoceros had all types of black demonic patterns all over its body, and even though it was shorter than Ming, it possessed extremely powerful abilities. This was a black demon tiger striped rhinoceros, an extremely rare and sinister 100,000-year-old soul beast. At this moment, the lake water was stained with the blood of Ming and Ming, but the black demon tiger striped rhinoceros was drinking with relish, and with each sip, a hint of crimson light appeared in its eyes. On the right was a deer that was feasting on meat. Most deer soul beasts were gentle soul beasts, but this one was feasting on meat. When it opened its mouth, it was a massive mouth that was filled with sharp fangs. However, when it closed its mouth, it looked no different from a normal deer. End of chapter. Chapter 854. However, it was also black in color and was covered in all types of devilish patterns. Even the 2 antlers on its head were covered in inky black patterns. Its eyes were also glowing, and it appeared to be quite relaxed. The dense black mist emanating from the entire lake was coming from the antlers of this deer. It wasn't very tall, and it wasn't even a third of Ming's height. However, it was the only soul beast that had managed to bite off a piece of flesh from his body. Within its teeth was a poison that could destroy one's spiritual will. This was the dark eye 7 poisons deer. It was also an extremely evil soul beast. It was also the most dangerous soul beast out of all of them. The final one was hovering in midair behind them. It was a flying centipede, a flaming flying centipede. This centipede was the largest of the 4. No, it was the longest. It was at least over 100 meters long. There were only over 50 segments in total, and each segment was over 2 meters long. They were covered in all types of barbs, and there was a layer of stone that was shimmering with dark light that resembled armor. Its head was the most hideous of all, and it had 2 long feelers on its head. The flames on its body seemed to be relentless, and even the water in the lake and Ming's own attacks were unable to extinguish the flames on its body. At this moment, it was opening its mouth to let loose a series of roars that were accompanied by bursts of scorching flames. Flaming Devil Fiend. That was the centipede's name. In Ming and Ming's memories, these 4 soul beasts were all very ancient soul beasts, and they hadn't heard of them for a long time. However, they had appeared after the pillar of golden light had risen into the air. They seemed to be in cahoots with the 5-headed star dragon and the headless general from before. The reason why those 2 soul beasts had fought with them was very simple. Those 2 soul beasts wanted them to hand over their territory and submit to their master. Ming and Ming naturally refused, and they began to fight. Over 3 years ago, Old 6 and Old 7 refused to listen to us and came up with an idea in advance. Even our master hasn't made a breakthrough yet. The dark nightmare 7 poisons deer let out a low growl as it continued to chew on the piece of meat it had just torn from Ming's mouth. Master has instructed that we are not to leave without his permission before he appears. That's why Old 6 and Old 7 lost their lives because of you two. You two be smart and stop struggling. The reason why we didn't kill the 2 of you just now is because we feel that the 2 of you are talented. The 7 poisons deer's tone was somewhat sinister, but it was even more frightening than the Hydra's voice. Bulsh*T. The Titan giant ape gripped the battered atlas staff in his hand. If you want us to submit, you'll have to ask the staff in my hand first. Hearing this, the 4 soul beasts froze and stopped what they were doing. Big brother, will you be scared if you die in battle today? Erming roared. A surge of heroic spirit seemed to surge in his chest. I'm afraid, Deming said. Erming. Deming sighed softly. I'm afraid that Xiao Wu hasn't revived yet. I'm afraid that Xiao Wu is in danger. I'm afraid that human won't be able to protect Xiao Wu. Hearing this, Erming stabbed the staff into the ground and looked at the 4 soul beasts. His honest and straightforward eyes exuded a ferocious aura. He was also afraid and worried about what Deming had said. But now we have no choice. Deming looked at the 4 ferocious soul beasts. Erming and I will never collude with you evil soul beasts. Seeing this, the 9-headed snake immediately roared, "Kill them!" In the next instant, the other 3 soul beasts howled and released terrifying auras from their mouth. The first to make a move was the pitch-black 7 poisons deer. Its antlers shone with a pitch-black light, and boundless black mist spread out from its antlers in all directions. The pungent and evil black mist symbolized the power of a domain. Among the 4 soul beasts, this 7 poisons deer didn't know how to attack, but it had an extremely powerful domain. The pungent and evil black mist had no effect on the other 3 soul beasts, but it was fatal to Deming and Erming. In terms of cultivation, this 7 poisons deer was the weakest, but in terms of strategic effectiveness, it was the most powerful. Deming and Erming's domains could even be corroded by this domain. The wounds they had sustained came from this domain. At the same time, the black demon tiger striped rhinoceros stomped the ground, and the entire ground seemed to tremble as the lake in front of it split open. It was able to walk freely on the surface of the water, and the demonic patterns on its body lit up as it charged toward Deming and Erming like a black whirlwind. The raging inferno fiend centipede in mid-air spewed out a stream of scorching flames, dyeing the entire sky in the color of flames. Deming and Erming roared. Right at this moment, a dazzling blue light struck the 7 poisons deer from not far away. In a split second, the 100,000-year soul beast let out an extremely painful howl within the dazzling blue light. The pure light seemed to be expelling the evil aura from the 7 poisons deer. The power of the domain disappeared in an instant. The pressure on Deming and Erming was greatly reduced. At the same time, a figure appeared as if he had teleported. The blue-gold trident became as long as a meter, and the trident pierced through the back of the 7 poisons deer. But at this moment the demonic patterns on the 7 poisons deer lit up, forming an extremely sturdy black-gold wall. The trident was only able to pierce half a meter in before it was unable to penetrate any further. But this was enough to kill the 7 poisons deer. If the demonic patterns on the 7 poisons deer had not lit up at the last moment to form a special wall, it would have died instantly. However, the demonic patterns quickly disappeared after they lit up, as if it was a one-time life-saving skill. Boom! In the next moment, the figure quickly retreated. It was covered by a layer of pale blue light again. It was none other than Tang San. He was the first to arrive, but he did not make a move immediately. Instead, he quietly observed and waited. He had heard the whole story of the siege of the 400,000-year soul beast. He did not make a move immediately as he did not know how powerful his opponents were. However, as soon as his opponents made a move, Tang San immediately determined that this black deer posed the greatest threat. This was because it had a domain, and it was a very powerful domain. Despicable human soul masters. The 7 poisons deer let loose an anguished wail. Get the hell out of here! However, Tang San had already put on the vast sea cosmic shroud again, and he had already disappeared into the distance through teleportation. Boss! The 7 poisons deer turned to the 9-headed snake. The 9-headed snake nodded, and dazzling light suddenly erupted from the eyes of the 3-headed snake. At the same time, De Ming and Er Ming were battling the black demon tiger-striped rhinoceros and the inferno fiend centipede. If their senses were correct, that was Tang San. They had sensed Xiao Wu's aura. Chapter 855. However, these 2 soul beasts were very troublesome to deal with. They had already been severely wounded, and they had been corroded by the 7 poison deer's domain, so their injuries were constantly worsening. As soon as the battle began, the 2 of them were already at a disadvantage. Their injuries were constantly piling up. However, they were worried about Xiao Wu. They knew that the most fearsome of these 4 soul beasts had yet to make a move. No, I can't let Tang San continue to attack. I have to send a signal to tell him to leave this place. De Ming and Er Ming thought to themselves. However, as their injuries continued to pile up, the 2 soul beasts began to fall unconscious. Boom! The scorching flaming tail of the Inferno Devilfire Centipede clashed violently with the tail of the Sky Azure Bull Python. Ci. De Ming let loose a pained roar of rage as the sound of something being burned rang out. This fiery demonic centipede's cultivation was extremely high, and its strength was even stronger than his. In addition, it was thrown down from the sky, so its strength was even greater. The centipede's tail was reduced to a bloody mess. Meanwhile, Er Ming was also in a tough spot. The black demon tiger striped rhinoceros had the most powerful defenses among the 4 soul beasts, and Er Ming's staff was like striking an iron mountain when it struck its body. It was very difficult for it to succeed. However, the black demon tiger striped rhinoceros's several meters long horn was able to tear a massive gash into Er Ming's body with each strike. Tang San, who was watching this scene from the shadows, was extremely anxious. If this continued, De Ming and Er Ming most likely wouldn't be able to last much longer. Even though he had exposed himself during that attack, he had the vast sea cosmic shroud and instantaneous movement. I still have my golden body. That 9-headed snake is definitely the most powerful of the 3 soul beasts. I have to be careful. With that in mind, Tang San charged forward again. He had used the sea god's light on his sea god's trident to almost kill the weakest of the 7 poison deer. This indicated that the sea god's light was extremely effective against these evil soul beasts. This was completely in line with what Senior Possessi had said. The sea god's trident was far more powerful than he had imagined, and it also possessed mysterious abilities. He stared intently at the 4 soul beasts. At this moment, the 9-headed snake suddenly blasted a mouthful of black energy toward the 7 poison deer. This black aura wrapped around the 7 poisons deer, and it was actually slowly healing the 7 poisons deer. Seeing this, Tang San knew that his chance had come. Since the other party was healing, this was the best opportunity. The next moment, Tang San rushed out again. This time, their target was the rhinoceros. The bright blue light of the sea god suddenly fell on the rhinoceros, causing it to let out an extremely painful and angry howl. Tang San flew in the air. He didn't directly approach the black rhinoceros. Instead, he bound the blue-silver grass to the handle of the sea god's trident and used the controlling crane capturing dragon technique to throw it over. The sea god's trident, which weighed more than 108,000 kilograms, instantly pierced through the rhinoceros's hard armor. Then, Tang San took it back again. However, the hydra suddenly let out a proud roar. In the next moment, he, who was in the state of golden body possession, was shocked to find that his body could not move. Although the golden body was immune to all damage, it was not immune to control. That's not right. This hydra is no ordinary 100,000-year soul beast. Tang San was shocked. It has at least 500,000 years of cultivation. That's equivalent to half a deep-sea demon whale. Moreover, this control seemed to be coming from 7 of the hydra's heads. Each head was emitting an intense black light. Haha! Human Soul Master, you think you can fight against the four of us by yourself? The Hydra let out a sinister laugh. In my Soul Stone domain, you Human Soul Master's soul power will be petrified. There's no way to defend against it unless your cultivation is stronger than mine. You think I'm trying to heal him, but I'm actually borrowing the power of Second Brother's domain. This domain is too strong for me to use alone. The Hydra let out a hearty laugh as it finished speaking. The petrification of soul power was countless times stronger than the petrification of the body. Tang San was shocked when he sensed that he could barely use his soul power. He had underestimated the strength of these soul beasts. They're too strong. At this moment, De Ming and Air Ming let out another furious roar. The Inferno Devil Centipede and the Onyx Demon Tiger-Striped Rhinoceros heavily injured them once again, causing them to collapse into the lake. Then, the Inferno Devil Centipede and the Onyx Demon Tiger-Striped Rhinoceros charged at Tang San, who was unable to move due to the petrification of his soul power. The huge centipede's tail smashed towards Tang San. The Onyx Demon Tiger-Striped Rhinoceros charged at Tang San. Tang San's pupils contracted. Right at this moment, a cyan-colored longsword suddenly streaked across the sky and slashed towards the raging flame Devil Fiend Centipede's tail. The two collided, and the Inferno Devil Centipede's tail was cut off, but the green longsword was also sent flying. Tang San was stunned. That green longsword? But the Onyx Demon Tiger-Striped Rhinoceros was still charging at Tang San. Wang Feng, who was rushing over from afar, had a bad feeling. He could not block two attacks by himself. The Xianming flying sword was the fastest and had the longest attack range. The speed at which they rushed over was also extremely fast. 14 pairs of black wings appeared on its back. Xiao San is the main character. Is he really dead? Wang Fengxin felt a chill in his heart. He wanted to use his soul-devouring blood wings to teleport over. After his soul rings had been greatly improved, Wang Feng was able to control his teleportation position. It was just that he was not completely accurate. He might not be able to land there, but he could only give it a try. But at this moment, Wang Feng suddenly gave up on this idea. Because he saw a figure suddenly emerge from the golden trident. Damn, is that the sea god's projection? Wang Feng was stunned. It was a tall and sturdy figure. He was wearing golden armor and looked extremely handsome. But his face could not be seen clearly as it was covered by a layer of fog. But compared to the 1001st steps, his aura was much more powerful. What a powerful aura! It's at least a demigod's aura. How can a projection be so powerful? Wang Feng looked at the sea god's projection. It's so good to have a backer. At the same time, the sea god's projection suddenly let out a majestic voice. Wang Feng could not hear it clearly. He sensed it with his spiritual power. Obviously, the projection should be communicating with Tang San. I am the sea god. I have dominated the Douluo world's sea for more than 1,000 years. I created the yellow, golden 13 halberds and swept the 4 seas. I will now teach you 3 moves. I will only use them once. The first move, calm, storm. Wang Feng's spiritual perception wasn't very clear about the intermittent voice, but it made Wang Feng's eyes light up. Interesting, Wang Feng narrowed his eyes and rushed over while watching attentively. The reward is so trashy. I will learn it secretly. Is there a problem? The golden 13 halberds. It's a divine skill. It's better than the one I created. 3 moves. With my wisdom, it's not a problem to learn 3 moves. P.S. Begging for votes. Chapter 856. How could a soul master's matter be called stealing? 1. How could a soul master's matter be called stealing? Wang Feng felt that this shouldn't be called stealing, it should be learning openly. Looking at the sea god in front of him, who was covered in armor and had a handsome face that looked like a mosaic. His heart was burning. Divine skill. Wang Fengxin thought, even if the divine skill had a limited release condition, and the power would be reduced by a few % if he stole it, it was still a divine skill. After all, it was a skill created by the sea god after thousands of years of roaming the ocean. It was much stronger than the skill that he had created half-heartedly and was still perfecting. It wasn't that he wanted to compete with the sea god. After all, the sea god was still a god. His skill wouldn't be trash. He was only a rank 80 soul master. He definitely couldn't compare to this big shot who had lived for thousands of years. Wang Feng stared at it without blinking. At this moment, the sea god's shadow appeared. The 4 soul beasts were clearly intimidated by him. The aura of a god, even if it was just a shadow, was not something that they, who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years, could compare to. The 4 soul beasts trembled slightly. The strongest among them, the 9-headed snake, had snake liquid flowing out of its mouth. It crawled on the ground and its huge body was like a sieve. But Wang Feng knew that these 400,000-year soul beasts weren't that simple. Their boss was probably that million-year soul beast. With such a powerful soul beast as their boss, and with such a savage and evil nature, they would probably be bold enough to attack the sea god's projection. At this moment, the sea god's shadow suddenly stepped forward. Boundless blue-gold light rose from under his feet like the sea. Immediately after, the sea god's shadow used a strange posture and shook the sea god's trident in his hand, releasing rays of blue-gold light. Each ray of light condensed into a blue-gold halo in the void. Then, the sea god's shadow gently circled the trident and pointed at the 4 soul beasts. Those blue-gold lights seemed to have eyes and flew towards the 4 soul beasts. Seeing this, the 4 soul beasts finally couldn't hold back. With the cultivation of 100,000-year soul beast, they didn't want to sit still and wait for death. Almost immediately, he launched an attack. Among them, the 7 poisons deer was injured by Tang San. The antlers on its head only released a faint black light, which flowed into the 9-headed snake next to it. It was a skill that was enhanced by self-sacrifice. At the same time, the 9-headed snake let out furious roars. Its 9 heads touched a mouthful of thick, stinky black mud, and then merged into one. It formed an enormous stream of black mud that shot towards the sea god's projection. It was the same for the flaming demonic centipede in the air. Its 100-meter-long body suddenly twisted, emitting a dazzling brilliance. Finally, the sea god's shadow, the black demon tiger-striped rhinoceros, stood on the lake, and the giant horn on its head shone with a dazzling light. It leaped high into the air, and its body was extremely agile. It chopped down with its head, and the giant horn turned into a black blade that was several meters long. It slashed towards the sea goddess. Wang Feng stared at it intently, wanting to see just what this indefinite storm was. This name was rather poetic. Could it be that the sea god was also a poet? At the same time, Wang Feng unleashed his spiritual power. He watched the sea god's every move, and the energy undulations in its body when it used the sea god's trident. Every posture and action seemed to be replayed in his mind countless times. In the next moment, 3 attacks were unleashed, and each attack was capable of killing a titled Douluo in an instant. However, the sea god's shadow wasn't afraid at all. It shook its trident slightly, and the bluish-gold halo that surged out caught the 3 attacks. The moment the blue-golden halo was trapped, it began to spin rapidly, forming a dazzling light curtain in the center. Then, it directly washed away the 3 attacks as if it was washing away stains with a cleaning solution, cleanly swallowing them up. Then, it expanded and landed on the 4 soul beasts of different sizes. When the bluish-gold halo trapped the 4 soul beasts, they seemed to have been immobilized. Their bodies shrunk violently. They roared in pain. The unpredictable storm is the only control-type skill in the 13 halberds. Once it hits the enemy, they won't be able to move for 8 seconds, no matter how strong they are. Even God-ranked soul beasts can be restrained for 3 seconds. The intermittent voice came from the sea god's mental communication again. Wang Feng could tell even without the sea god's explanation. This was a powerful control-type skill. A god's skill was naturally extraordinary. Apart from restricting, the halo formed by the unpredictable storm also had a certain defensive ability. After it restrained the enemy, it could also hurt them. It could be said to be both offensive and defensive. An 8-second restriction was Wang Feng's longest control-type soul skill. Wang Feng's strongest control-type soul skill, Spirit Seal, could only restrain the enemy for 3 to 4 seconds. It also had a certain defensive ability. It could seal part of the enemy's attack. However, after it was sealed, it couldn't restrain the enemy. This unpredictable storm negated the enemy's attack. At the same time, it restricted the enemy and had a certain offensive ability. Indeed, it couldn't be compared. This bluish-gold halo can't be defended or destroyed. Unless it's a godly skill of the same level, it might be possible. Wang Feng pondered. However, the prerequisite is that it can hit the target. Even if this bluish-gold halo has tracking abilities, there's still a chance that the enemy can dodge it. However, since it's a godly skill, normal titled Douluo and 100,000-year soul beasts can't dodge it. Such a godly skill was usually instantaneous. It took a very short time to accumulate power. Furthermore, it was very fast. It could be said to be crowd control. I think I know how to do it, Wang Feng chuckled. There are still 2 more moves. There's no rush. However, this godly skill was unleashed by the sea god using the trident as a medium. The trident was a godly weapon. It contained some godly power. It also had the light of the sea god. Wang Feng could tell that this godly skill was related to the light of the sea god. It was easy to learn it but not easy to unleash it. Unless he used the trident too. Wang Feng didn't think too much. He continued to look at the sea god. The second move, Eternal Space. After hearing this name, Wang Fengxin thought that the sea god's name was poetic. However, it had nothing to do with its actual effect. To describe it in 3 words, it was fake. It gave people a feeling that they didn't understand but felt that it was very powerful. His own naming style was more practical. It was often named according to the effect of the skill. It was simple, crude, and useful. End of chapter. Chapter 857. With this move, the sea god suddenly leaped high into the air. The trident in his hand seemed to emit light that filled the sky. In this boundless blue-gold light, all kinds of halberd shadows were formed in an instant. In Wang Feng's eyes, it was like a martial arts expert was practicing martial arts in the air. Different halberd lights were scattered through the trident and landed on the 4 soul beasts. A group attack skill. The range wasn't big, but it could surround all 4 soul beasts. Wang Feng frowned slightly. The sea god was too fast. Although Wang Feng could see it clearly just by looking, the sea god was too fast. He could see clearly, but each halberd light contained different stances and energy circulation method. There were all kinds of special auras. It was a little difficult. Wang Feng forcefully memorized it and went through it in his mind as he comprehended it. He wasn't Tang San after all. Tang San was much easier. In comparison, although the sea god only demonstrated each move once, all the information of each move would flow into Tang San's mind every time it was demonstrated. As the successor of the sea god, it was equivalent to giving Tang San a martial arts manual and demonstrating it again. It was much easier to learn. Wang Feng, who learned it secretly, didn't have any martial arts manuals. He could only study it through the other party's demonstration. Unpredictable Storm was still okay, but this move was more troublesome. With this move, countless halberd marks suddenly appeared on the 4 soul beasts' bodies. Black blood spurted out, and the weakest 7 poisons deer was almost on the verge of death. The other 3 soul beasts were heavily injured by this halberd light. The raging inferno fiend centipede in midair had half of its body chopped off and fell from the sky. The black demon tiger striped rhinoceros huge horn was also cut in half. The hydra was the strongest, but 3 of its heads were cut off at this moment, and blood spurted out. 4 powerful evil soul beasts were instantly killed in a single strike. Wang Feng's eyes widened as he watched the blue-gold light sweep across the entire place. His current strongest group attack soul skill, the Ice Flame Fury Lotus, couldn't do this. It was much inferior because the bodies of these 4 evil soul beasts were stronger than titled Doulu. The most important thing was that they didn't accumulate power. The Ice Flame Angry Spirit Lotus needed to store energy, and its only advantage was that the Ice Flame Angry Spirit Lotus had a huge range. It far surpassed the 1,000 Years leisurely. The innate 5 directional domains black and white light cannons were also considered an AoE skill, but they weren't this powerful. In terms of offensive strength, only the 3 consecutive extreme dragon falcons could severely injure these soul beasts in an instant. The Xianming flying sword was also fine, but he needed to execute the 7 killings sword art in advance. The only thing that could surpass him was the Pengu axe. None of the 4 soul beasts should be able to withstand a single blow from the axe. Moreover, these were all single-target attack. However, this 1,000 Years of leisure was an AoE skill. There was no comparison. I can modify these 3 moves of the 13 golden halberds into the 3 moves of the God-slaying spear. It shouldn't be a problem. Wang Fengxin pondered. I just need some time. Since he wanted to secretly learn it, he definitely couldn't use a halberd. Since he did not have a halberd, he could only rely on comprehending the core concepts of these 3 moves and modify them on the God-slaying spear. If it was in the past, it would not have been so easy to learn and improve such a divine skill. No one would look in that direction. However, Wang Feng was not the same as before. The last move, never return, severely injuring 4 soul beasts in an instant seemed to be a piece of cake for the sea god. It wasn't worth his attention at all. Without saying a word, he raised the sea god's trident. The trident was like a dragon as it struck towards the 9-headed snake that still had 7 heads. The sea god's trident turned into a blue-gold shadow and landed on the 9-headed snake's body. After being restricted by the unpredictable storm and severely injured by the 1,000 Years of leisure, this 9-headed snake had no room to resist at all. Almost instantly, the 7 heads were all cut off by the blue-gold halberd. Its entire body began to explode. Countless pieces of flesh and blood flew everywhere. The terrifying attack power was astonishing. Without any effort, the 9-headed snake was killed in an instant. It even had a huge amount of energy left. It was conceivable that even the deep-sea demon whale would lose half of its life if it was hit by this move, even if it didn't die. It's a powerful single-target attack. Wang Feng thought to himself, it's much stronger than my heaven and earth thunderstorm. With Wang Feng's current strength, his heaven and earth thunderstorm could barely injure the deep-sea demon whale at sea. His red soul rings were now stronger than before. However, the power of the heaven and earth thunderstorm was more related to the power of heaven and earth. The lightning that was triggered by the deep-sea demon whale was the power of the deep-sea demon whale. Wang Feng used the heaven and earth thunderstorm to attack himself, causing him to be severely injured. From this point of view, even if the absolute wind and lightning spear wasn't a divine skill, it wasn't too bad either. If the enemy was weak, the heaven and earth thunderstorm couldn't be used. It wasn't like the Never Return. Its damage was explosive and stable. Wang Feng estimated that he could barely match it unless he used the Pengu Axe's violent blood attack. However, the violent blood attack was too dangerous. In the sea god's realm, only a demigod like Bibi Dong could withstand the attack of the sea god's silhouette and survive after activating his martial soul true body. Even 1,000 Dao Flo and Possessi would probably die from this attack. It's a pity for this soul beast. This 9-headed snake is at least 500,000 years old. With Little Sand's current body, he shouldn't be able to absorb it, right? His soul rings don't even add up to 500,000 years. Wang Feng shook his head secretly. After observing these 3 moves, Wang Fengxin had a rough idea. He quickly analyzed and comprehended these 3 moves in his mind. If there was a progress bar, these 3 moves would increase rapidly. At this moment, Wang Feng was approaching the lake. At this moment, the sea god's projection seemed to be a little weak after performing the 3 moves. The projection started to flicker, as if it would disappear at any time. Learn these 3 moves well and you'll be safe. The sea god communicated with Tang San mentally. Also, leave this place quickly. A 1,000,000-year soul beast has been born here. It's very strange. It's not something you can fight against now. Alright, how much have you learned? The sea god asked after thinking for a while. About 70 to 80%. Tang San hurriedly said, a little ashamed. I'm slow-witted. I didn't learn everything. Not bad, very good. The sea god's dignified voice didn't blame him. Instead, it sounded a little surprised. It seems that I didn't choose the wrong person to be able to learn so quickly. Child, work hard and use my sea god's trident well. Don't let it be covered in dust. After saying that, the sea god suddenly looked into the distance and gradually disappeared. He was looking in the direction where Wang Feng was coming from. Wang Fengxin's heart jumped. Did the sea god find out that I secretly learned it? End of chapter. Chapter 858. However, Wang Feng wasn't afraid. After all, he had passed the second trial of the sea god, and he had secretly learned 3 of the sea god's technique. Was the sea god going to take revenge on him? That was impossible. At this moment, the sea god disappeared. Only then did Tang San come to his senses. Wait, what did the sea god just say? A 1,000,000-year soul beast? There were 1,000,000-year soul beasts in the great Star Do forest? Cold sweat was pouring down Tang San's back. Could it be that these 4 soul beasts were the subordinates of the 1,000,000-year soul beast? After withdrawing his golden trident, Tang San immediately turned to Deming and Erming, who were floating above the lake. Deming, Erming. Xiao Wu flew out of her soul ring and arrived beside the 2 soul beasts. Blood was flowing down the sky azure bull python's body, staining the lake even more crimson. Erming's situation wasn't any better. The black demon tiger striped rhinoceros's horn attack had left a gaping wound several meters long on Erming's chest. It was an extremely gruesome sight. Xiao Wu, you've been resurrected? Deming murmured in a low voice. That's great. We can die in peace now. Erming looked at Xiao Wu's projection, and his large eyes were stained with murky blood. But why do you seem a little weak? Xiao Wu's face was covered in tears as she shook her head. No, I haven't completely resurrected yet. Let's not talk for now. I still have some spirit herbs here. Let's see if they can help you recover. Let's leave this place first. Otherwise, a 1,000,000-year soul beast might attack us. Tang San pulled out a few spirit herbs from his 100 treasures pouch. However, both Deming and Erming heaved a faint sigh. Their injuries and powers were extremely weak. How could ordinary spirit herbs be enough to heal them? A 1,000,000-year. Deming's lips twitched. Was that really the case? When that pillar of light had appeared, they had sensed that something was very wrong. We can't leave. Erming pointed a finger at Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu, take Tang San and leave this place. Aside from that 1,000,000-year soul beast, several very powerful human soul masters have also come to the great Star Do forest. However, they didn't find this place. Their target should be me and boss. Tang San was stunned when he heard that. Powerful human soul masters, could they be the titled Douluo of the Martial Soul Alliance? Thinking of this, Tang San broke out in a cold sweat again. Only then did he recall that back in the great Star Do forest, those people from the Spirit Hall had come to capture Xiao Wu, and they had known about De Ming and Erming. No, we can't just leave like this. Xiao Wu looked at De Ming and Erming with tears in her eyes. At this time, Tang San suddenly frowned, and his expression softened a little. We really don't have to go. Someone can save you. Hearing this, Erming was stunned. At this time, a figure flew over from afar, and a clear voice sounded. Little Three, not bad. You discovered me in advance? Wang Feng flew over from a distance, his black wings flapping. Like a stream of light, he appeared in front of Tang San. De Ming and Erming were completely dumbstruck upon hearing this. Wang Feng, it's actually you. I didn't expect to see you before I die. Erming was so excited that the wound on his chest tore open again. The last time you appeared, you flew away before I even had a chance to fight you. Sigh, I won't be able to fight you this time. Erming heaved a feeble sigh as he spoke. Last time, Wang Feng had appeared to fight the phantom Douluo because he had fled very quickly. However, with Erming's current power, Wang Feng could easily beat him to a pulp with his second gear. Big Brother Feng, you really didn't die. Xiao Wu stared blankly for a moment before circling around Wang Feng. A smile appeared on her face as she said, It seems that Big Brother was right. Even if we really die one day, we will die. Even if we die today, you probably won't die either. We still have a lot of things to ask you. It's a good thing Rong Rong and the others aren't here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to escape. Wang Feng chuckled. You'll all become gods in the future, so how could you die? Wang Feng knew that Tang San and Erming had to have a lot of things to ask him, most likely about him becoming a popediff. However, Wang Feng naturally couldn't tell them this at a time like this. The golden lotus in his hand rotated, and golden light instantly enveloped De Ming and Erming. In that instant, Wang Feng's brows furrowed slightly. These two beasts had sustained significant injuries. They were only slightly better than the 3 whale sharks, who had been beaten half to death by the devil whale. Back when he was at rank 79, it had taken Wang Feng several months to heal those 3 beasts. Now that he was at rank 80, it would most likely be very difficult for him to heal De Ming and Erming in a short time. It would be easier to protect them. After all, they had been attacked by 4 extremely powerful 100,000-year soul beasts, and they weren't ordinary 100,000-year soul beasts. The attacks of these soul beasts were extremely corrosive to the mind and body. Furthermore, even though the Golden Lotus could quickly heal De Ming and Erming's injuries, bursts of black qi soon began to emerge from their wounds, and they began to worsen. It was as if they had been inflicted with a special buff. I'll use the light of the sea god to see if I can expel the black qi from their wounds. Tang San looked at De Ming and Erming's wounds, and a beam of bluish-golden light suddenly erupted from the core of his golden trident. As the light of the sea god fell, the black qi began to disintegrate, and the wounds began to heal again. Seeing this, Tang San's heart relaxed slightly. The light of the sea god had the effect of destroying demons and evil. It should be very easy to expel this black qi. However, just as Tang San heaved a sigh of relief, countless black qi emerged from De Ming and Erming's wounds again. How could this be? Xiao Wu cried out. Wang Feng frowned slightly. These 4 soul beasts should have been given a special attack. Otherwise, they wouldn't be like this. It was a bit similar to the attack special effect of the god-killing spear. The wounds couldn't be healed and hurt the soul. But this black qi was a kind of maggot. He was afraid that he could only kill the owner of the evil black qi. As for whether the White Lotus could purify it or not, Wang Fengxin wasn't sure. At this moment, a faint voice came from afar. My evil spirit demonic qi is not something that you, who is not even a demigod, can expel with an incomplete divine light. This voice was clear and cold, with a hint of arrogance. It seemed to be calm, but there was a sense of contempt. In an instant, Tang San was stunned. Even Wang Feng was startled because he couldn't sense the source of the voice. Either the other party's spiritual power was too strong, Or the other party's strength was stronger than his and had a special defensive detection method. Could it be that million-year soul beast? Not long after, a figure suddenly walked out from afar. He was wearing a blood-red robe and his face was calm. He looked to be less than 30 years old. His blood-red hair fluttered in the wind, and there was a vermilion dot between his eyebrows, which made him look a little demonic. He was young and handsome. As the young man walked slowly, it seemed as if the world had become a little more evil. The blood-black chi in the air became thicker. End of chapter. Chapter 859. Human? Tang San looked at the young man who had walked out of nowhere in a daze. No, it's not a human. It's a soul beast. Xiao Wu whispered. I'm afraid it's the kind of soul beast that can transform into a human after going through 9 heavenly tribulations. Hearing this, Tang San sucked in a breath of cold air. He had heard about it from Xiao Wu or Possessi more than once. After a soul beast cultivated to 100,000 years, it would experience a heavenly tribulation every once in a while. The heavenly tribulation was extremely dangerous, and it was a natural chasm for 100,000-year soul beast. Because of this, some soul beasts thought that they couldn't pass the heavenly tribulation, so they recultivated and transformed into a human. Some soul beasts were proud and wanted to forcefully pass the heavenly tribulation. Many powerful soul beasts died because of this. But every time they passed it, their strength would increase greatly, but the power of the next heavenly tribulation would be even more serious. Possessi had said that the deep-sea demon whale king could also transform into a human because it had gone through 9 heavenly tribulations and was only 1 step away from transforming into a dragon. In that case, the young man in front of him was at least as strong as the deep-sea demon whale king? Or even stronger. The young man in blood-red clothes was tall and emitted a cold and evil aura. His eyes were pitch black as he scanned the surroundings of the lake. There was only a lump of minced meat on the ground of the 9-headed snake that had exploded. Above the minced meat was a scarlet soul ring. In the center of the minced meat was a soul bone. As for the other 3 soul beasts, they were on the verge of death. At this moment they were all crawling on the ground, emitting black gas. They only had a few breaths left. The young man was expressionless, as if he had already expected this. Finally, his gaze landed on Tang San and Wang Feng. His gaze swept over De Ming, Ming, and Xiao Wu. At this moment, Wang Feng also sized up this young man and was a little surprised. Could this be my million-year soul beast? Just this? A man? Looking at this aura, could it be that Di Tian? Wang Feng didn't know much about the characters in the later books of Douluo's original work. He had only heard of the few popular ones. As for the others, Wang Feng couldn't even remember the later generations of Shrek's 7 monsters. He could barely remember the names of the main characters. Who are you? Are these your men? Tang San's whole body tensed up as he looked at the young man. This young man gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. This feeling was no less than when he faced the demon whale. It's been a long time since I saw a living human. The young man did not answer. Instead, he let out a long sigh. With his hands behind his back, he said pretentiously, "The aura on your bodies is really pure. Especially this human." The young man looked at Wang Feng, and the darkness in his eyes flickered. At this point, the young man laughed. There's actually a human soul master who obtained the inheritance of a divine seat. Their deaths were worth it. Tang San felt a chill in his heart when he heard that. Xiao San, Xiao Wu, leave with De Ming and Ming. Wang Feng took 2 steps forward and said slowly while looking at the young man. But the injuries on Ming's body, Tang San frowned and glanced at the young man. If the black qi could not be expelled, the injuries on the 2 great Ming dynasty's bodies would not be able to recover. Could it be that he had to drag De Ming and Ming along? Tang San did not have that much strength. I didn't expect that humans and soul beasts would still have such feelings. A strange light flashed in the young man's eyes. This is really amazing. How about this? I'll spare the two soul beasts' lives and absorb the evil spirit demonic chi in their bodies. As for you two human soul masters, be obedient and let me eat you. What do you think? After saying that, the young man suddenly took a step forward. An invisible pressure pressed down on Tang San as if the sky was collapsing. The surrounding air seemed to be squeezed out, and there were bursts of sounds of air explosions. Tang San groaned. Xiao Wu's shadow became more transparent and directly went into Tang San's soul rings. Several soul rings gradually rose from Tang San's body to resist the terrifying pressure. I don't think so. Wang Feng looked at the young man in blood-red clothes. The young man's aura was slightly stronger than the demon whale's. And it was very strange. The young man laughed. Then there's no other way. It's rare for me to be kind. You don't cherish it, but once my evil spirit demonic chi comes into contact with you. In this world, other than gods, only I can absorb and remove it. Although these four are very weak, I gave them this evil spirit demonic chi. Other than true gods, any soul beast or life form that comes into contact with it will only end up dead. Wang Fengxin thought, this million-year soul beast is even more pretentious than me. He's not as handsome as me, but he's so good at pretending. Hearing this, Tang San frowned slightly. He used the light of the sea god again and sprinkled it on the two Ming brothers. However, although the black qi retreated quickly, it still surged up again. It's useless. The young man shook his head. I don't want to destroy your bodies so that it won't affect the taste. So, I don't want to do it, but if there's no other way, then I can only destroy the flowers. Wang Feng looked at the young man and sighed. If you don't know how to use words, don't use them. When you become my soul ring in the future, I will teach you how to speak human language when I have time. Hearing this, the young man was startled. Then he laughed out loud. Tang San was stunned. What is Brother Feng thinking? Soul ring? Does he want to kill this million-year soul beast? Wait, it doesn't seem impossible. When Brother Feng was on the Sea God's Island, he could suppress Bibidon and force Bibidon to retreat from the Sea God's Island. But a million-year soul beast, just as he was thinking, Wang Feng turned around and looked at the two Ming brothers. After thinking for a moment, the white lotus in his hand turned slightly. Under the circulation of his soul power, a white light enveloped the two of them. The next moment, wisps of blood-black qi were quickly crushed from the two Ming brothers' bodies and finally assimilated into endless white light. Seeing this, the young man was suddenly stunned. He looked at Wang Feng and was a little lost for a moment. What's going on? Where's my evil spirit demonic qi? Wang Fengxin also breathed a sigh of relief. Sure enough, I should have believed in the white lotus. What bullshit evil spirit demonic qi. It's nothing under the purification of the white lotus. Little San, take the two Ming brothers and leave first. Wang Feng frowned. Tang San hurriedly nodded when he heard this. Tang San still remembered that white lotus. Back then, it was this white lotus that had pulled them out of that strange mystic realm. Thinking of this, Tang San was secretly shocked. Even if his strength had not reached the level of a titled Douluo and he had not completely inherited the Sea God's mountain, it was not complete. But Brother Feng's white lotus didn't even have a soul ring, and it could directly purify the evil spirit demonic qi. Didn't this mean that this white lotus was of a higher level than Sea God's light? Leave. The young man smiled. You think you can leave? After saying that, the young man took another step forward. In an instant, the whole world seemed to darken. A boundless domain instantly covered the entire world. Tang San only felt an invisible force as if it had sealed the space. This was far beyond his imagination. It was somewhat similar to the nine-headed snake's soul stone domain, but it was far more terrifying. Not only was his soul power condensed, but his vast spiritual power was also condensed. In the next moment, a green flag suddenly spun out from Wang Feng's side. It was the green lotus flag. The green light enveloped Tang San and the two soul beasts. Tang San suddenly felt the pressure on his body disappear. However, this cyan light only covered a range of 100 meters. It wouldn't be very difficult to escape from it. End of chapter. Chapter 860. Apart from the green light, Tang Wulin was at his mercy. The young man's domain was too strong. Tang San couldn't even release his blue-silver domain to defend himself. The young man frowned again when he saw this. "Little San, lend me your golden trident. I'll cover your escape," Wang Feng suddenly said. Tang San was stunned. "Use it? How?" But Tang San didn't question it. He tossed the golden trident to Wang Feng. Tang San didn't know what Wang Feng was going to do, but he chose to trust him. Brother Feng might be able to wield the golden trident, but he didn't have the approval of the Sea God's Island. He shouldn't be able to wield it. Unless Brother Feng has already passed the second test of the Sea God's Island? Tang San seemed to have thought of something. As expected, after leaving Tang San's hands, the golden trident regained its weight of 108,000 jin. It landed in Wang Feng's hands and let out a roar, causing the earth to tremble. In the next moment, Wang Feng's aura surged. He turned into a streak of light and stepped into the air. He moved his body in a strange position and shook the golden trident in his hand. Although the golden trident in Wang Feng's hand weighed 100,000 jin, Wang Feng could even wield a heavy silver pillar 5 times the weight of a golden trident, let alone a mere 100,000 jin golden trident. More importantly, Wang Feng had passed the second test of the Sea God's Island and received the approval of the Sea God. Therefore, he was qualified to wield the golden trident. A bright light shone from the center of the trident. A bluish-gold halo shot out from the center of the trident and flew toward the young man in the distance. Tang San couldn't help but exclaim, "That's the Sea God's 13 halberds! Unpredictable storm!" Tang San Xin could not help but be shocked. "I haven't even mastered it yet. When did Brother Feng learn it? Is Brother Feng the illegitimate son of the Sea God in the mortal world?" Of course, that was just a thought. Tang San couldn't really believe it. But this was simply too shocking. One had to know that it hadn't been long since the Sea God had appeared. He hadn't even fully comprehended the 3 moves that he had used, not to mention performing it in such a complete manner. However, Tang San could tell that Brother Feng's unpredictable storm was not as relaxed and smooth as Sea God's. Clearly, this was his first time using it. But it was the real unpredictable storm. The slightly dim bluish-gold halo fell toward the blood-red clothed young man, causing him to be stunned. The power of God? The young man let out a loud roar, as if he could not believe that this was coming from a human. In reality, he had borrowed the power of the Sea God's trident. The young man's roar was very strange. It sounded like the roar of a dragon, filled with an extremely ruthless evil aura. In the next moment, the young man had already condensed 2 blood-red balls of light in his palm, and he threw them directly at the blue halo. However, it was at this moment that the power of the Sea God's divine skill was displayed. Attack and defense in one strong control. The moment the blood-red balls of light merged with the halo, the bluish-gold halo gushed out a curtain of light and directly swallowed the 2 balls of light. Then, the halo fell on the young man without slowing down. The moment the halo fell on him, the young man felt a terrifying force sealing him. Even the domain that he had released froze a little. "Let's go!" Wang Feng shouted loudly. Although he had already studied and comprehended the unpredictable storm in his mind, it was his first time using it after all, and he was still not very familiar with it. The effect would be greatly reduced. Coupled with the fact that the opponent was very strong, he could only freeze him for 4 seconds at most. Tang San suddenly came to his senses. At this time, De Ming and Air Ming's injuries were somewhat better because the black gas had been purified by the White Lotus. Coupled with the remaining power of the Golden Lotus, They immediately got up and ran away with Tang San. The young man was controlled by the unpredictable storm. He could not even extend his domain to follow Tang San and could only watch helplessly. Wang Feng did not use the last two moves. The last two moves would probably take some time to comprehend and study. His progress should be about 90%. He still could not use them. However, the unpredictable storm alone was enough to make De Ming and Air Ming leave temporarily. De Ming and Air Ming were extremely weak now, so naturally, he could not let them leave alone. Otherwise, Wang Feng would have asked Little Three to stay and kill this million-year-soul beast together. After all, the power of two people was always stronger than that of one person. Do you think you can run away like this? The young man looked at Wang Feng coldly. Wang Feng smiled and threw the golden sand trident in Tang San's direction. He had borrowed this thing to use a divine skill like unpredictable storm to forcefully control the other party. If he really wanted to use it, the god-slaying spear or the Pangu axe were much better than the golden sand trident. Wang Feng looked at the young man and suddenly said, "Do you know Di Tian?" Hearing this, the young man was stunned. He looked at Wang Feng with a strange expression. "You know Di Tian? What is your relationship?" "He is my brother," Wang Feng said. The young man. Suddenly, the young man laughed. There was a mocking smile on his face. "You humans always like to think that you are smart. Di Tian, if you can be brothers with such a weak fellow, it seems like you are not that strong." After saying that, the young man roared. Countless blood-black gas rose from his body. His aura increased exponentially. In less than 4 seconds, the bluish-gold halo on his body was destroyed. "Wait for me to kill you first. After that, I will go and kill your brother who is still in closed-door cultivation." The young man laughed coldly. "I am not Di Tian. My name is Long Xie. Human, if you know Di Tian, then I will not let you go. Although I do not know how a mere human like you knows the king of the black dragons, Wang Feng." He wanted to get some information from the young man. He did not expect to find out something incredible. This Long Xie should be created by the system, right? Because it was not mentioned in the original novel. And from the looks of it, Long Xie's strength was not simple. There were many types of 100,000-year soul beasts. Wang Feng knew that Di Tian was the king of soul beasts. He had the bloodline of a true dragon. Even the deep-sea demon whale was not as strong as Di Tian. However, Wang Feng did not know much about Di Tian's background. He only knew that Di Tian was very strong. Run if you can't win. Wang Feng looked at Long Xie and thought to himself. There was nothing he could do about it. Wang Feng didn't think that he could defeat a million-year soul beast whose strength was unknown. He should have a chance if he used the Panguak. Wang Feng felt that Long Xie's strength should be above the demigod Bibidon. He knew it from his tone. He did not even care about Di Tian. The deep-sea demon whale was probably nothing in his eyes. Why did the system create such a thing? Wang Feng was speechless. He did not have to ask for a million-year soul beast. He could have asked for a 900,000-year soul beast. The next time he checked in, his soul ring would be upgraded to a million-year soul beast. Wouldn't that be the same? What should he do now? At this moment, in the distance, a group of people from the Martial Soul Hall was approaching in the direction that Tang San left with De Ming and De Ming. The leader of the group was Bibidon. P.S. There are 3 or 4 more chapters tonight. End of this chapter. Chapter 861. Inside the Blood-Red Lake. Blood-black fog made this place look like hell on earth. The lake water sparkled with a bloody light, reflecting a strange and frightening scene at this moment. Long Xie stood on the other side of the lake. His eyes were pitch black. He exuded an evil and ferocious aura, which made Wang Feng feel a little weird. Long Xie's aura was extremely pure. It was similar to the Dark Angel's blood-patterned power. They were all extremely pure emotional origin energy. Before Wang Feng came, he was already in his best state. Otherwise, he wouldn't have unleashed unpredictable storm. Even with the help of the golden trident, it wasn't a skill that could be easily unleashed. It was closely related to one's strength. This million-year soul beast Long Xie made Wang Feng feel that he was as strong as the deep-sea demon whale. He might even be stronger. He might even be a demigod. However, Long Xie shouldn't be an ordinary soul beast. Otherwise, he wouldn't have looked down on Di Tian. Of course, Wang Feng didn't rule out the possibility that Long Xie was just bragging. Wang Feng didn't plan to use Pangu's axe directly. If he used Pangu's axe now, he might have to use explosive blood. Sometimes, he had no choice but to bleed. His blood would be absorbed by Pangu's axe, and more blood would be absorbed. He wanted to test Long Xie's strength first. If he couldn't beat him, he would leave first and think of other ways. The god-slaying spear appeared in Wang Feng's hand. His 7 soul rings flickered slightly. The god-slaying spear's ferocious aura brightened Long Xie's eyes when it appeared. Good spear. Long Xie stared at the black spear in Wang Feng's hand. Human, is this your martial soul? This spear is extraordinary. Long Xie looked at the god-slaying spear with admiration and admiration. Wang Feng smiled. He could roughly guess what was going on with this million-year soul beast. It was very likely that this soul beast was supposed to disappear from this continent. It had disappeared without a trace, but it was possible that under the effects of the system, this soul beast had survived and crossed a hurdle. As he thought about this, Wang Feng felt that the system was cheating him. It wasn't supposed to reward him with a million-year soul beast. This was causing trouble for him. Do you like it? Wang Feng asked. I do, Long Xie replied. Then I'll send you off. Wang Feng grinned. The next moment, he disappeared on the spot without a sound. Without any commotion, he appeared diagonally above Long Xie. Swish, swish. 3 arcs of light slashed down from Wang Feng's feet. Extreme Dragon Falcon Kill. With Wang Feng's current state, his Extreme Dragon Falcon strike could instantly kill any titled Douluo below rank 98. Even if the 1000 Dao flow was caught off guard, he would still be hit. After taking 2 moves, he would be severely injured. However, Long Xie seemed to have sensed Wang Feng's attack. He shifted his body slightly when the 3 light blades were about to land on him. Then, he suddenly stretched out his hand. It wasn't a hand, but a blood-golden dragon claw. CICICI. The next moment, Long Xie grabbed the energy blade with his bare hands and crushed it. However, there was only a faint mark on his dragon claw, and he did not suffer any damage. Long Xie didn't seem satisfied. He looked at the faint mark on the dragon claw and muttered, "What? I'm a little rusty." Wang Feng. This guy was really good at pretending. Wang Feng wanted to laugh. Wang Feng had been pretending for more than 10 years, and he had finally met his match in this aspect. Emotion severing. Before it landed, the star core appeared and fused into the god-slaying spear, causing it to radiate a faint aura. The greenish-purple spear light pierced through the clouds and mist, and it carried a fearsome aura as it pierced towards Long Xie. Long Xie placed one hand behind his back, and his dragon claw radiated a blood-golden aura. This time, he was still going to grab it with his bare hands. When the greenish-purple spear light landed on his dragon claw, Long Xie's body jerked slightly. He was a little shocked. But then, something even more surprising happened. The greenish-purple spear light, which contained the power of wind and lightning, did not hurt his dragon claw. However, when the god-slaying spear's blade landed on his dragon claw, it left a visible bloody mark. Long Xie was stunned. His eyes turned extremely cold and his body jerked. His immense strength caused the ground to tremble slightly. The dragon claw that grabbed the god-slaying spear flicked it gently, and Wang Feng was sent flying into the air. "I'm not used to it." Wang Feng, who was in the air, looked at the bloody mark on the spear tip, sighed, and shook his head. Long Xie, your spear is a little strange. Long Xie sneered. It can even break through my defense. You're only in my human form, and you haven't even used 1/10 of my strength. There was nothing wrong with that. Long Xie was really good at pretending. Wang Feng smiled. Long Xie was in his human form and had not used part of his strength, but there was no way he had not even used 1/10 of his strength. However, Wang Feng seemed to have thought of something. He frowned and looked at Long Xie. What a pity! Although I can hurt you, a confident smile appeared on Long Xie's face. But you're just giving me more power. Your spear contains an extremely strong murderous aura. Do you know that it's my nourishment? Ha ha ha! Great spear, the best spear in the world. Such a divine weapon is a martial soul? What a joke. It shouldn't exist in this world. Long Xie laughed as he spoke. Wang Feng frowned slightly. He had thought of that, but he didn't expect it to be true. Long Xie's strength was extremely strange. Wang Feng put away the god-killing spear, and the Xianming flying swords floated in the air. A Xianming flying sword appeared in his hand. The Xianming armor weighed more than 90,000 pounds. It was close to 50,000 pounds. The Xianming spike could be used as hundreds of weapons, and it could be big or small. You used this to cut off the flaming demonic centipede's tail, right? Long Xie looked at the Xianming flying swords and narrowed his eyes. You're able to control it with your mind power. Even some trash gods in that place might not be able to do it so well. In the next moment, the flying swords flew toward Long Xie. With Wang Feng's current mind power, the Xianming flying swords were the most powerful when they were in their giant form. However, if they were split into 3 smaller swords, it would be difficult for the enemy to defend against them. Clang! 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 In an instant, the Xianming flying swords formed a dense net of swords, and streaks of green light appeared in the air. Every strike caused an earth-shattering sound. The 7-kill sword intent wreaked havoc in the sky, trying to cut Long Xie into pieces. On the ground and on the lake, the cold light from the swords created countless gashes that were dozens of meters long. The blood in the lake churned and created huge waves. End of chapter. Chapter 862. Wang Feng's eyes flashed, and he stomped his left foot lightly. In the next moment, tsunami-like waves that were a few hundred meters tall rose from the lake. They twisted in mid-air and formed a powerful waterspout. It attacked Long Xie, who was surrounded by several Xianming flying swords. Jade Qilin Tsunami. As the Xianming flying swords weren't soul skills, Wang Feng could use them as he used other soul skills at the same time as his spiritual power was strong enough. He could form an even stronger attack. With all his red soul rings and his spiritual power compressed, Wang Feng's abilities could be said to have reached a peak. There weren't many people in the world who could exchange blows with him anymore. However, Long Xie was still using his dragon claws to attack the Xianming flying swords. He seemed very relaxed, but every attack could destroy the Xianming flying swords and turn them into countless Xianming spikes. He was very strong. However, Wang Feng's spiritual power was too strong. The Xianming spikes that were destroyed immediately reformed into Xianming flying swords. Long Xie frowned as he looked at the waterspout that was coming at him. At this moment, he finally reached out with his left hand that was behind his back. In the next moment, a blood-red ball of light that was the size of a glass bead condensed in his left hand. It was similar to the one that resisted the unpredictable storm earlier. Long Xie flicked his finger and flicked the blood-red glass bead out. When the blood-red glass bead met the waterspout formed by the Jade Qilin Tsunami, it released an intense beam of blood-red light. In mid-air, blood-red water droplets fell into the lake like a storm. These are all small tricks. Long Xie focused his eyes. He drew a streak of blood-red light in the air with his hands and destroyed all the Xianming flying swords. Following this, he roared furiously. His voice contained immense spiritual power, and he cut off Wang Feng's spiritual connection with the Xianming spike. Countless Xianming spikes pierced into the ground and the surrounding trees at an extremely fast speed. Seeing this, Wang Feng roughly understood Long Xie's abilities. His cultivation might not be higher than the deep-sea demon whales. However, he was much stronger than the deep-sea demon whale in other aspects. For example, his bloodline and his strong body were stronger than the deep-sea demon whales. This gave him the ability to resist Wang Feng's attacks so easily. His spiritual power was also very strong. With a single roar, he could instantly cut off Wang Feng's mental connection to the mysterious underworld spike. As one could imagine, his mental strength was definitely very strong. Long Xie had probably lived for many years. Human, your strength is only SOSO. Your gun is pretty good, but that's it. Long Xie and Ling Xie smiled. Next, I will use 1/5 of my strength to capture you within 60 seconds. Wang Feng. In the next instant, Long Xie disappeared as if he'd teleported. Speed. It was an extremely fast speed. It was not teleportation, but a display of extreme speed. Long Xie arrived in front of Wang Feng in the blink of an eye. The blood-gold dragon claw in his hand glowed brightly. God-devouring dragon claw! Shouted Long Xie. A blood-red vortex appeared on the golden dragon claw in his mouth. This vortex contained an extremely strong attractive force. A claw came straight at Wang Feng. Countless trees in the forest behind Wang Feng were uprooted in an instant. Then, they were crushed by the black gold light in the air. Then, they were sucked into Long Xie's claw. Wang Feng only felt his mind shake. The attractive force contained in this attack seemed to be able to directly affect one's mind and soul. This was a double attack. Wang Feng narrowed his eyes. He didn't dodge. Instead, he used the suction force to clench his fist and gather all his strength into it. He punched out. Long Xie was surprised. He was a human soul cultivator. Was he trying to fight him with his body? Was he trying to kill himself? But in the next moment, his expression changed. He only felt a huge force being attracted by his dragon claws, as if it was several times stronger than his own home. The devouring dragon god annihilating claw was extremely powerful, and the blood-red vortex could easily suck large soul beasts into its grasp and crush them into smithereens. Even the 2 soul beast kings in the lake could be easily sucked into his hands. It wasn't hard to imagine just how strong the suction force was. But the strange thing was, this human soul cultivator didn't dodge. Instead, he used the suction force to throw a punch at Long Xie. The instant the punch landed on the blood-colored vortex, the blood-colored vortex appeared. Long Xie's expression changed. The blood-red vortex exploded. A huge amount of energy came from his claw and tore his clothes to shreds. Cracks spread from his dragon claws all the way to his arms and shoulders. Boom! Time seemed to stop as the two of them made contact. There was a violent burst of energy that shook the ground several hundred meters away. The terrifying energy caused the ground to crack open. A spiderweb of cracks that were several dozen meters in diameter appeared. Several seconds later, as if there was a delay, Long Xie was blasted away. He created a huge splash on the surface of the blood-red lake. In the end, he barely managed to stop by the shore, leaving deep footprints on the ground. Long Xie stared at the human soul cultivator in front of him in shock. Was he really a human? Are you really a soul beast? Wang Feng waved his hand. Why are you so weak? Long Xie. He was speechless. Wang Feng smiled. He didn't lose to anyone when it came to showing off. This Long Xie was interesting. To be honest, what was Wang Feng's strongest point? Soul skills? Spirit? Martial soul? Yes, these were all very strong. However, Wang Feng felt that his strongest point was strength. Unparalleled strength. Why? Wang Feng's strength had reached a terrifying level when he unleashed his potential in the raging inferno waves. Back then, when Panga's axe chopped down, even Bibi Dong couldn't bear it, and his body was about to fall apart. Now that his heart had been reforged, he understood the secret of swordsmen. With all the enhancements from his red soul rings, Wang Feng's strength had risen to an extremely exaggerated level. He unleashed the strength of his Xianming armor, which was close to 100,000 kilograms. Wang Feng didn't know how much strength was behind that punch, but it was definitely very strong. He wasn't in first gear right now. He was in his full state, and all his buffs had been activated. His strength was at least 300,000 kilograms. His punch was even stronger than the heavy silver pillar. Furthermore, his strength was concentrated in his punch. It was even more destructive. This was evident from the injuries on Long Xie's arm. Of course, Long Xie didn't expect this. The soul skills that Hui Yuhao had used earlier were nothing to Long Xie. End of chapter. Chapter 863. Soul beasts knew that humans should use soul skills to attack. Therefore, Long Xie had seen and experienced soul skills before, no matter how strong they were. However, he had never seen such strength before. This million-year soul beast was using a human's body to fight him in close combat. Wang Feng might not be able to destroy him, but he could definitely suppress him. Long Xie couldn't attack him with his spatial mirror. Long Xie thought that the soul skill he had used was Wang Feng's limit. He didn't know that Wang Feng was a hexagonal warrior. Wang Feng didn't have any weaknesses or limit. He didn't expect a human like Wang Feng to be so strong. Long Xie wasn't convinced. He charged at Wang Feng again. This time, I'll use 1/5 of my strength. I'll capture you in 60 seconds. Bang! Another wave of energy exploded. It was like a wave of water, and it suppressed everything that was several hundred meters away. Long Xie was sent flying. Wang Feng also took a few steps back. Bang bang bang! Then, Long Xie attacked Wang Feng again and again. He seemed to be extremely unconvinced. How could a human be stronger than him? Toward the end, Long Xie's face was red, and his clothes were tattered. He looked at Wang Feng and said in a low voice, "You can't be human. Unless you're a god, a human can't have a body like this. Are you a human that's been transformed from a soul beast?" He couldn't accept this. Wang Feng smiled. "You'll know when you become my soul ring." Long Xie wanted to show off, but he didn't even reveal his true form. Of course, Hui Yuhao wouldn't use his full strength. Wang Feng felt that he wouldn't be able to defeat Long Xie if he revealed his true form. However, he had to wait until Long Xie revealed his true form. Long Xie's eyes flashed with blood-red light. "You want me to become your soul ring? Do you really think you can beat me? You've used your full strength, haven't you?" "I've only used 1/5 of my strength. Since that's the case, I'll show you half of my strength." Long Xie roared furiously and spat out a beam of black light. His body started to swell, as if he was turning into a dragon. It stopped when it was 3 meters tall. He looked like a half-dragon man. His entire body was covered in blood-golden scales, and his muscles bulged like mountain rocks. A pair of black golden dragon wings grew out of his back. They were engraved with complicated patterns and emitted an extremely evil aura. The thick black fog in the air quickly surged into his body. On his chest, there was a sparkling crystal that looked exceptionally eye-catching. "Why didn't you change back to your original appearance?" Wang Feng asked with a frown. The other party was definitely a dragon. However, the ancient and evil aura it gave off was extremely strange. Lin Fan did not know what kind of dragon it was. If he knew Ditian, then he was probably a true dragon as well. "You don't deserve to see my true body," Long Xie said coldly. "I don't believe that a human like you can compare to a soul beast or me." Wang Feng. Wang Feng looked at Long Xie and the red lotus in his hand slowly appeared. He held the hellfire in his hand and condensed it on his fist. The evil qi on Long Xie's body was so heavy that it had to bear a lot of karma. The hellfire of the red lotus should be able to greatly reduce his fighting strength. Perhaps Hu Yuhao could really kill him. Long Xie was so reckless and wanted to fight him head-on. Wang Feng was not going to be polite. The hellfire of the red lotus had to come into contact with the enemy. If the hellfire of the hellfire was ignited on the Xianming flying sword, it could severely injure the enemy. However, the Xianming flying sword was too fast. The hellfire of the hellfire could not completely ignite on it. At this moment, Long Xie punched Wang Feng again. Evidently, he wanted to prove his strength. As for the red flower, it seemed to be another martial soul. However, Long Xie was not afraid of it. Boom! This time, Long Xie was still sent flying. However, it was not as exaggerated as the last time. Wang Feng also retreated a lot. Long Xie did not look much bigger after he transformed into a half-dragon. However, his body was filled with explosive strength. However, Wang Feng was always the one who came out on top. This was because Long Xie would be reflected by his body. Hu Yuhao's thorned lotus and Xianming armor could reflect his attack. Even if Long Xie's body was special, he could not completely negate it. That was why Wang Feng's punch could unleash such an exaggerated effect. After this, Wang Feng looked at Long Xie's palm. There were balls of hellfire of the red lotus burning on it. What is this? Long Xie was a little excited. It can make me feel pain so clearly? Even my soul seems to be trembling. Oh, it feels so good. Wang Feng was speechless. It was Wang Feng's turn to be astonished. Damn, what is this million-year soul beast? It feels good being burned by the hellfire of the red lotus? No, he doesn't have that much karma on him. Wang Feng's eyes flashed with a strange light. This is strange. He has such a thick and evil aura. Logically speaking, he must have killed an astronomical number of living beings. How can the hellfire of the red lotus be so weak? It's as if it's tempering his body. This is too strange. Could it be that Long Xie did not kill many living beings? He doesn't have any karma from killing many living beings? Then where did the pure and dense evil aura on his body come from? Wang Feng could not figure it out. This million-year soul beast was the strangest thing that Wang Feng had encountered in the Douluo world. Did the system really make this happen? Long Xie didn't have much karma on him, so the hellfire of the red lotus didn't have much effect. Instead, it was helping him. It was as if he was tempering his body with the hellfire of the red lotus. Long Xie's life force was so strong that it could withstand such a loss. Most importantly, Wang Feng discovered that the evil aura on Long Xie's body was getting purer as the hellfire of the red lotus burned him. Could it be that this is his origin energy? Does he live or was he born from it? Wang Feng murmured. If that was the case, Long Xie's origin was not simple. Wang Feng spun the red lotus in his hand and recalled the karmic fire on Long Xie. Wang Feng fell silent as he looked at Long Xie. This was his million-year soul beast. After this round of battle, Wang Feng's heart could be said to have multiplied several times. Strong. Strong indeed. Mysterious. Very mysterious. Wang Feng guessed that Long Xie might be related to the god realm above the Douluo world. Like Di Tian, Long Xie might have been sleeping here, and his cultivation was gradually increasing. If this had happened in the original book, he might have died during one of the heavenly tribulations. That was why there was no news about him. However, under his constant influence, as well as the system's secret control, the outcome might have been changed. That was why he was in this situation. End of chapter. Chapter 864. He was stuck at rank 80. He could only defeat Long Xie and absorb his million-year soul ring. He could also absorb other 100,000-year soul rings, but that wouldn't be very effective. Once he reached rank 80 and obtained a million-year soul ring, Wang Feng was confident that he would be able to face a god-tier powerhouse. Wang Feng knew that there would be a god-tier battle at the next checkpoint. Long Xie's Red Lotus Karmic Fire and God-Slaying Spear were ineffective against him. Wang Fengxin thought to himself, perhaps I can try the purification effect of the White Lotus? However, Wang Feng didn't plan to delay this time. In order to maximize the purification effect of the White Lotus, Wang Feng activated his chaotic green lotus true body. 7 scarlet soul rings lit up on his body. Long Xie was a little disappointed that his red lotus karmic fire had been absorbed. He frowned as he looked at the human opposite him. All red soul rings? The last one is an 800,000-year soul ring. It seems to be a god-bestowed soul ring. He's really a human. No wonder he's so strong. A solemn look appeared in Long Xie's eyes. No human body can withstand such an absurd combination of soul rings. He's not a god, but he has a godlike body. Since when did humans have such a powerful being? The last soul ring was red, and there were streaks of golden patterns. It meant that it was close to a million-year soul ring. That martial soul. How many martial souls does this human have? Long Xie looked at the chaotic green lotus that was rising above Wang Feng's head. It actually made his heart palpitate a little. Boom! The green pillar of light shot straight into the clouds. All of the thick black fog and blood qi in the surroundings were cleansed by this green pillar of light. It seems like I have to unleash 90% of my strength, Long Xie said plainly. After he finished speaking, his aura suddenly rose. This time, his body grew bigger again. He went from 3 meters tall to 10 meters tall, then 20 meters, then 30 meters, finally, he reached 100 meters. He stopped when he was 200 meters tall. His head turned into a blood-red dragon's head. It was swallowing waves of evil aura. His entire body was exuding a blood-gold color, and every scale on his body was rippling with a dazzling luster. Like a heavenly sun energy charger, he was absorbing the invisible energy in the air. The dragon wings on his back were at least 100 meters long, covering the entire sky with a slight flap. True body. This was Long Xie's true body. Clearly, Long Xie was affected by the presence of the Chaos Green Lotus and was forced to reveal his true form. It was a dragon that had never been seen before in history. When one looked at the scarlet golden light, it felt like one would sink into a boundless sea of blood and evil thoughts. With a gentle flap of the dragon wings, a boundless hurricane swept up in the air. The majestic power caused all the trees in the area to be crushed into bits by the hurricane. In comparison, the current Wang Feng was extremely minuscule. As expected, Wang Feng saw Long Xie's true body right away. It was normal for a soul beast of this level to have such a body. His aura was at least several times stronger. Furthermore, after transforming into a true form, all of his attributes would be greatly enhanced. Wang Feng was not surprised. He even felt that the other party might have been hiding part of his strength. Long Xie liked to show off, but he was still very strong. Wang Feng took a deep breath. Meanwhile, on the other side, several kilometers away, Tang San was helping De Ming and Er Ming to recover, and he was temporarily staying here. However, the situation was not good, because he had encountered people from the Martial Soul Alliance. "Ha ha ha, Your Highness, it's a piece of cake." A sharp voice sounded. "I didn't expect to get 200,000-year soul beasts for free. It's a pity that we didn't catch Tang San and the others at the coastline last time. However, Your Highness is wise." He sensed that there was something strange about this place. Tang San, who was holding the trident, had sensed the martial spirit palace's people at the first moment. Although his blue-silver domain couldn't unleash its full power due to the special and sticky black fog in the Great Star Do Forest, he could still sense the people from the Martial Soul Hall in advance. Dozens of meters away, Tang San held his trident and stared coldly at Pope Bibidon and the four titled Douluo behind him. Only Gui Ju, Qianjun, and the four titled Douluo were present. This was because their martial soul fusion skill had an extremely powerful domain effect. Bibidon wasn't lacking in power, and with the assistance of these two domains, no one in the Great Star Do Forest was a match for him. Your Highness, how should we deal with them? The group didn't approach from dozens of meters away. They only looked on in silence. De Ming and Ming's massive bodies were far too conspicuous. Even the vast sea cosmic shroud couldn't completely conceal them. Tang San wanted to leave for a while and use the vast sea cosmic shroud to conceal himself. He wanted to wait for them to get close to De Ming and Ming before launching a sneak attack. He wanted to kill a titled Douluo. However, after thinking about it, he decided against it. If he did that, De Ming and Ming would also be killed by Bibidon in an instant. What was the point of that? If that happened, he would also be exposed. Tang San didn't think that he could launch a second sneak attack under Bibidon's detection. Bibidon was the Pope of the Martial Soul Hall and the leader of the Martial Soul Alliance. He was the person who countless soul masters worshipped on the continent worshipped, and he had already surpassed rank 99. With such power, he had no chance at all. In fact, Tang San suspected that even if the projection of the sea god were to appear again, it might not be able to defeat Bibidon. Tang San looked on with an expressionless face as the group approached. Tang San, don't hesitate. You go first. De Ming and Ming growled. Their target is us. We've just recovered some strength, so we can hold them off for you. You go first and revive Xiao Wu. Tang San clenched his fist. He had gone to great lengths to bring De Ming and Ming out of the dragon's den, but now, he had entered the tiger's den. Bibidon looked at Tang San in the distance with a cold and emotionless look in his eyes. The four titled Douluo didn't dare to say anything and just waited in silence. They were waiting for the Pope's orders. Right at this moment, a massive dragon-shaped creature rose from the ground in the distance. It was emanating a monstrous might. At the same time, a pillar of azure light flashed and shot straight into the clouds. The four titled Douluo were stunned when they saw the pillar of azure light. Bibidon was also stunned. This seems to be Lord Popetiff's martial soul true body? The chrysanthemum Douluo was shocked. This, in the next moment, Bibidon's calm but slightly trembling voice rang out. Let's go to the front first. Don't worry about them for now. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already disappeared. The four titled Douluo looked at each other and quickly followed after him. Tang San also looked at the scene in the distance with a hint of worry in his eyes. P.S. It's a little late, right? End of chapter. Chapter 865. Brother Feng is in danger. Tang San turned to De Ming and Ming with a grim expression. What's going on, Tang San? Why didn't the pontiff kill us? Why did she go in that direction instead? Ming was a little perplexed. It wasn't like they hadn't seen these people from the Martial Soul Palace before. Furthermore, the human woman who appeared to be their leader was emanating an extremely powerful aura that was far more powerful than that of the four titled Douluos. Logically speaking, if he wanted to kill them, it would be as simple as eating and drinking. Why did she suddenly leave? The direction they're heading in seems to be the same direction as Wang Feng. De Ming turned to the giant dragon in the distance. The battle has most likely reached a critical juncture. That's the true body of a million-year soul beast. It looks like Wang Feng has become a lot more powerful. He can even fight a million-year soul beast to this extent. Ming sat down on the ground and scratched his head. Tang San heaved a faint sigh before telling them about how Wang Feng had become a spy for the Martial Soul Palace. The two kings of the forest were completely flabbergasted upon hearing this. Wang Feng sure is a cunning bastard. Ming's heart was thumping wildly. Doesn't that mean that human woman hates Wang Feng to the core? She didn't kill him last time, and now that Wang Feng is still alive, she's going to tear him to shreds? No wonder she turned a blind eye to the two of us. I thought we were fake 100,000-year soul beasts. Ming's eyes were also filled with concern as he looked into the distance. If we let that human woman lead those 4 titled Douluos, then Wang Feng will be attacked from both sides. Ming turned to Tang San and said, "Go help Wang Feng, Tang San. The two of us will be fine. We won't die anytime soon." Tang San's brows furrowed slightly as he looked at the 2 soul beasts. He wouldn't die for a while. The aura in this place was so weak. If he left, what would happen if other powerful soul beasts appeared? In their current state, any tens of thousands of year soul beast would be enough to kill them. Furthermore, their life force was constantly fading away. It was quite clear that they wanted Tang San to leave them and go help Wang Feng. No, big brother. With Tang San's strength, he won't be of much help if he goes there. Those 4 titled Douluos are one thing, but that human woman is so powerful that even we're fearful of her. Tang San sighed inwardly. Regardless of whether it was the million-year soul beast or the Bibidon, they weren't opponents that he could defeat right now. The difference was too great. Even those 4 titled Douluo couldn't be dealt with in a short period of time. In a battle of such peak power, he might be able to barely fight back by relying on Neptune's trident. How about this? At this moment, Ming and Ming exchanged a glance, and both of them could see the determination in each other's eyes. No, Ming, Ming, I won't allow you to do this. At this moment, Xiao Wu flew out from Tang San's soul ring and glared at the two of them. Tang San stared blankly at the 2 soul beasts and frowned slightly. Tang San, are you really determined to resurrect Xiao Wu? Ming stared at Tang San with a determined look in his eyes. Of course. Tang San replied, I can give up my life for Xiao Wu. Alright. Ming rose to his feet and cast his gaze into the distance. Tang San, you're still a few ranks away from becoming a titled Dalu. It might take you a long time to reach those ranks. However, we can bestow our power upon you. We can resurrect Xiao Wu and help you become a titled Douluo so that you can help Wang Feng. He saved Xiao Wu last time and he saved us this time. We can't ignore this kindness. He's too powerful, so he doesn't need our power, but you're different. But you are different. If you obtain our power, you will become even stronger. Your power will skyrocket. You can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Tang San seemed to have sensed something upon hearing this. Only Xiao Wu, who was circling around the 2 soul beasts, barely managed to open her mouth. Ming appeared to be a simpleton, but he was actually no fool. In fact, it could be said that he was very intelligent and had a clear grasp of the situation. After that, Ming and Ming turned to Tang San with an intense gaze. We'll sacrifice ourselves to you so that you can absorb our soul rings in a short time and quickly become a titled Dalu. Go resurrect Xiao Wu and help Wang Feng. Ming stared at Tang San with an intense gaze. Tang San's heart jolted slightly, and he first glanced at Xiao Wu, then at Wang Feng in the distance, then at Ming and Ming. Without any hesitation, Tang San raised his golden trident and extended his right arm. With his chaotic azure lotus true body, Wang Feng's powers were elevated to another level. Aside from his Pangu axe, his martial soul true body was the only thing that Wang Feng could use to defend himself against a demigod. The reason for this was very simple: it had all red soul rings. In the state of his martial soul true body, Wang Feng could use 2 different forms, and all of his soul skills were greatly enhanced. Wang Feng clicked his tongue as he looked at the 200-meter-long dragon in the distance. It was even bigger than the deep-sea demon whale, but Wang Fengxin had a feeling that it hadn't activated its martial soul true body yet. However, its size was just as Wang Feng had expected. The reason was very simple. Divine Light of Universe. The Cauldron of Universe appeared in his hand again. The chaotic azure lotus gave off a dazzling divine light that made the cauldron of universe even more dazzling. A waterfall of rainbow divine light fell from the cauldron of universe and struck Long Xie's body. Suddenly, Wang Feng felt his soul power drain rapidly. There was no way the enormous Long Xie could dodge the cosmos divine light. Even though the waterfall-like Qianquan divine light was tiny to Long Xie didn't care about it at all. The moment the divine light of universe landed on Long Xie's body, Long Xie suddenly let out a terrified roar. Then, his body shrunk rapidly. From more than 200 meters, it was as if he had been shone on by a shrinking lamp. He shrunk to more than 100 meters. He shrank to half his original size, and his scales gave off a slightly dim luster. "Human, are you trying to restrict me?" Long Xie roared in shock. "It's useless, my dragon body won't be affected by any human soul skills. Break." As soon as he finished speaking, Long Xie's blood-red scales shone with a sinister blood-red light. Then, the blood-red light enveloped Long Xie's body. In the next moment, Long Xie's body, which had been weakened by the divine light of universe, started to expand rapidly. In just a few seconds, Long Xie became 200 meter long again. Now, he was close to 300 meter long. Wang Feng shook his head. This Long Xie's true form was no ordinary being. The divine light of universe was effective, but it was limited. After all, it was only a soul skill. Thinking of this, Wang Feng released his innate 5 directions domain, and a white world covered 100 meters around him. The 5 small flags revolved around Wang Feng, making him look like a divine general. Roar! At this moment, Long Xie, who had become even bigger, suddenly flew up. Its dragon wings covered the sky as it locked onto Wang Feng, who was in the innate unharmed domain. End of chapter. Chapter 866. The boundless blood-black light turned into a boundless domain that covered thousands of meters. Wang Feng's innate 5 directions domain was like a swimming pool in this blood-black sea. It wrapped around Wang Feng so that he wouldn't be swallowed by this sea of blood. In the next moment, Long Xie's enormous body shot towards Wang Feng like a streak of blood-red light. His wings suddenly straightened, and like the wings of an airplane, they formed a 200-meter-long blood-red blade that slashed towards Wang Feng's domain. Bang! The terrifying blade slashed down, and it seemed to cut the innate 5 directions feather in half as it landed on Wang Feng's body. Boom! As the sharp blade descended, it gave off a massive aura, causing the ground in the surroundings to crack open by 100 meters. The unparalleled power caused the surrounding area to become barren. Long Xie spread his wings and slashed down with the strength of his innate true body. However, he felt as if he had struck an indestructible rock. He stared at the figure below the blood-red blade formed by his wings. "Invincible!" Long Xie snorted. Wang Feng was holding onto the 100-meter-long blade with both hands. He looked like an ant holding onto a huge blade. Wang Feng wasn't hurt at all, but the strength of his opponent's attack had already surpassed his own. In this state, Long Xie was stronger than Wang Feng in all of his elemental attribute. It had reached a terrifying level. Even in his martial soul true body state, he couldn't compare to Long Xie at all. Long Xie was definitely a demigod. However, he was definitely stronger than a demigod. Seeing that Wang Feng wasn't hurt at all, Long Xie was very sure that he was invincible. Otherwise, with his current strength, there was no way a human soul master would be able to return the needle without suffering any injuries. In the next moment, Long Xie didn't say anything. He spat out a streak of blood-red light. The blood-red light was extremely evil, and it sprayed towards Wang Feng like lava. Wang Feng frowned. He shook his hands to push the blood-red blade away, and his wings reverted back to their original form. Wang Feng immediately scattered, but he was stained by the blood-red light. The the blood-red light contained an extremely evil aura. The blood-red pattern on Wang Feng's chest flashed, and the blood-red light was instantly absorbed. Human, you're becoming more and more interesting. You can even absorb my blood-red light. Not only can you purify your source, but you can also absorb it? Your blood-red pattern is weaker than mine, but it's not as simple as it looks. Long Xie's eyes flashed with a strange light as he spoke. This human was giving him more and more surprises. Even though he had only used 90% of his strength, it was still reasonable to say that no one in this world could withstand his power. However, this human in front of him seemed to be different. In the next moment, Long Xie's claw could. His attacks came wave after wave, not giving Wang Feng any chance at all. However, the exchange between the two of them just now was completely different. Long Xie was Xie's could attack of Long Xie of a demigod. Of Long Xie's demon true body. Of Xiever of Long Xie eyes Long Xie wasn't stupid, even though he liked to show off. He had just shaken off the blood-red blade and dodged the blood-red light. His claw was so powerful that it could crush a mountain. Wang Feng was stunned. He didn't have time to unleash his white lotus, so he could only punch out. Instantly, Long Xie's huge body was pushed back. Like a sharp arrow, Wang Feng was also sent flying backwards. Long Xie was astonished. He had used 90% of his strength, but he couldn't crush Yi Futian. Yi Futian? He was even pushed back by Long Xie's strength? He was a dragon. A true dragon that was close to 300 meters long. How could Long Xie's ant-like body unleash such terrifying strength in his current state? In the state of his martial soul true body, Wang Feng's amplification soul skills were enhanced. He was naturally stronger than before. Wang Feng's current state was even stronger than when he fought Bibidon. This dragon is smart. He doesn't seem to want me to use my white lotus. Wang Feng grunted. Does that mean he's afraid of the white lotus? The white lotus can purify the evil spirit and demonic qi. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's his nemesis. Long Xie attacked again at this moment. Wang Feng focused on Long Xie's huge claw. He immediately used his extreme dragon falcon kill and disappeared from where he was. Not only could this soul skill be used to attack, but it could also be used to defend. It was a soul skill that could attack and defend at the same time. In the next instant, Wang Feng appeared behind Long Xie. 3 blazing arcs of light slashed down. His martial soul true body didn't enhance the soul skills of his soul bones. However, Wang Feng's current state was much stronger than before. Naturally, this soul skill was much stronger. The arcs of light that were several meters long landed on Long Xie's rock-like back. CI. 2 of the attacks pierced through the scales on Long Xie's back. The third attack landed on the flesh beneath the scales. Blood splattered everywhere. This was the advantage of Long Xie's bigger body. Even though he was stronger, it was still difficult for him to dodge Long Xie's attacks. Long Xie was furious that his back had been injured. His reaction was extremely fast. His bloody back suddenly twitched. Countless scales scattered, revealing numerous blood-red vortexes that looked like eyes. There were more than 100 of them. Boom! In the next instant, Long Xie roared. The blood-red vortexes on his back shot out streaks of blood-red light toward Wang Feng. They were like blood-red lasers that wanted to turn Wang Feng into a sieve. Long Xie's entire body was a weapon. Wang Feng furrowed his brow. He couldn't use a soul skill like the Extreme Dragon Falcon kill consecutively. It had a cooldown time. If he used it forcefully, it would cause unavoidable damage to his leg bones. Wang Feng spread his wings and faced the blood-red lasers head-on. He didn't try to dodge them. In his invincible state, these energy attacks couldn't stop Wang Feng at all. Long Xie couldn't suppress him unless he used his strength to attack. Wang Feng faced the countless lasers. The mysterious underworld spike quickly formed a huge mysterious underworld sword in his hand. He slashed it toward Long Xie. The sword light was more than 10 meters long. It was like a dragon-slaying blade. It slashed down on the blood-red vortexes. At this moment, Long Xie's tail swept towards Wang Feng at the critical moment. Bam! Wang Feng used one hand to grab onto the tail. He was knocked back. Because of this, the sword light that was more than 10 meters long slowed down by a bit. However, the scales on Long Xie's back quickly closed up in just a few seconds. The sword light, which was more than 10 meters long, only made a sizzling sound as it stood on his back. End of chapter. Chapter 867. Human, it seems that I have 90% of my strength. It seems that I must show you 99% of my strength. Long Xie was furious, but his voice was cold. Wang Feng, can't you use 100% of your power? In the next moment, Wang Feng sensed that he was locked on by a horrifying spiritual force. Wang Feng's innate five-direction territory had been activated for more than half of the 25 seconds. At the same time, more than half of the scales on Long Xie's body fell off as if they were molting. Then, they gathered around Wang Feng in the air. They formed a prismatic shape and wrapped around Wang Feng. It even wrapped around Wang Feng's territory. Wang Feng's heart skipped a beat. This was a control-type skill, and not just any control-type skill. Those blood-red scales had cut off Wang Feng's spiritual force. In other words, the cage made of blood-red scales prevented him from teleporting out. He couldn't sense the outside. This pretentious dragon is trying to drag out the duration of my invincibility. Wang Feng looked at the scales around him. The scales seemed to be upside down and unbreakable, emitting rays of blood-red light. Wang Feng punched out, and in the next moment, his entire body was directly sent flying. The scales that were hit emitted rays of blood-red light that extended to all the scales. It can be reflected? Wang Fengxin was shocked. And the power is shared by all the scales. It's hard to break through. I guess it can even absorb energy attacks? As if to confirm, Wang Feng released a star cannon. At the same time, the black and white light cannons in the territory also shot toward the scales. However, it was as Wang Feng had expected. All of the energy attacks were absorbed by him. Not only that, they were reflected. Seeing this, Wang Feng frowned slightly. Long Xie liked to show off, but he was very experienced in battles. He had been suppressing his chaos martial soul true body so that Wang Feng wouldn't have time to release the White Lotus. Now, he was using this special method to control Wang Feng. There were only a few seconds left before the invincibility ended. If this continued, Wang Feng would be the only one who would lose, or he would have to use the Pangu axe. Wang Feng thought for a while. Suddenly, a huge tremor came from outside. Rays of powerful energy suddenly came out of the scales. The strange power seemed to penetrate Wang Feng's mind and body. It was as if an invisible energy had passed through the blood-colored scales and attacked Wang Feng. From afar, it looked like a streak of blood-red light was rushing through Wang Feng's body. Not only was Wang Feng unable to move, but his soul force and spiritual power were also rapidly depleting. Wang Fengxin was shocked. Could it be that the blood-red scales could attack from the inside as well as from the outside? If that was the case, it would be troublesome. Outside. Long Xie excitedly attacked the cage formed by the blood-colored scales. From time to time, he would spit out raging flames, and from time to time, he would brandish his dragon claws to attack the cage. This skill was his ultimate skill. Removing the defensive scales on his body, he could wrap his enemies up. With the support of his domain, not only could he trap his enemies and prevent them from leaving, he could also attack his enemies from the outside. God-binding scale cage. As the name implied, even gods could be imprisoned. Of course, that was Long Xie's opinion. Such a powerful move was naturally extraordinary. As a million-year soul beast, his strength wasn't that simple. Long Xie knew that he only needed to wear out Long Xie's invincibility. When the god-binding scale cage disappeared, Long Xie would be reduced to a pile of mush. It wasn't to his taste, but this human was too strong. It was impossible to defeat him unscathed. Bang! 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 Long Xie attacked again and again. The god-binding scale cage lasted for a long time. It was enough for him to attack as much as he wanted. A deafening sound reverberated through the air. Every strike of his contained 99% of his current strength. The more he attacked, the more excited he became. But right at this moment, a sharp howl could be heard coming from afar. In the next moment, a beam of green light slammed into Long Xie. Without the protection of his scales, he was hit by the attack. Large patches of flesh and blood were being corroded by the green light. A visible hole appeared where the wound had been, but Long Xie's body was so huge that the beam of light didn't penetrate his body. His life force was quickly being corroded. Long Xie was stunned. "Who is it?" Long Xie looked at the source of the attack. An angry dragon roar came from its mouth. "Why are these people always attacking me?" The god-binding scale cage was an extremely powerful control-type skill. It had a wide range and was very controlling. However, there was a flaw. That was, without the scales on his body, his defense would be greatly reduced. Otherwise, this emerald green light that contained an evil aura of death might not have been able to break his scales. It was a woman. She had 6 slender spider legs that were as sharp as blades on her back, and her forehead was covered with emerald green patterns. Her entire body exuded an extremely powerful aura. Her soul power was so condensed that it was almost tangible. The evil aura of death seemed to penetrate the void from her cold eyes. Long Xie frowned. This woman has such a powerful aura. A god? No, not exactly. Is she a demigod? Long Xie looked at the woman in the distance. She was a woman, but because she was using her martial soul true body, her current state was more like a large spider empress that was constantly exuding an imperial aura. She was Bibidon. Not far behind her, the 4 titled Douluo stared at the huge dragon in front of them in horror. It was too big. Compared to the size of a human, this blood dragon was smaller than an ant. Just his aura alone was enough to make these titled Douluo lose all will to fight. The difference between their ranks was too great. It was the most terrifying domain. The 4 titled Douluo didn't dare to step into the blood-red domain. If they did, they would probably die. However, they didn't want to die. Instead, they flew down to the 100,000-year soul beasts by the lake. That was their target. It was also the Pope's order. Bibidon didn't want them to fight. The Rakshasa demon's scythe appeared in her hand. Bibidong looked at the cage made of scales at the side, and the coldness in his eyes intensified. In the next moment, the purple wings on Bibidon's back flapped. Her 9 soul rings rose as she attacked Long Xie. "Human, I'm not in the mood to fight with a demigod. I suggest you get out of here." Long Xie snorted. "Otherwise, you'll suffer a terrible fate. I promise." Although he didn't have any defensive abilities, he was still very strong. If he couldn't do it, he would use 999% of his strength. End of chapter. Chapter 868. However, Bibidon didn't waste any time talking to her. When she was halfway there, she turned her Rakshasa demon's scythe into a blade of light and attacked Long Xie. The blade of light expanded in midair and became a 100-meter-long purple blade of light. It was a godly skill, demon scythe blade of light. The blade of light exuded an evil divine intent, which shocked Long Xie. However, the blade of light was so powerful that Long Xie didn't dare to take it head-on. After all, his defenses weren't very strong. The jade green light earlier must have been a godly skill. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been injured so badly. Long Xie immediately left the God-binding scale cage and tried to dodge the blade of light. His right claw even lost a large chunk of flesh because he was too late. Long Xie roared furiously a few times. Today, he was injured by 2 humans in a row. After dodging the blade of light, Long Xie opened his mouth and spat out a beam of blood at Bibidon. Bibidon didn't dodge, as she was already beside the God-binding scale cage. The jade-green pattern on her forehead suddenly lit up. A green shield of light appeared in front of her. It was her 8th soul skill, Spider Emperor's devouring light shield. When the beam of blood-red light touched the shield of light, it exploded with an intense light and melted the shield. However, Bibidon retracted her scythe and used all her strength to slash at the God-binding scale cage. Clang! There was a crisp and ear-piercing sound as it scraped against the blood-red scales. The God-binding scale cage released an intense beam of light under the effect of such a godly weapon, but it didn't break. Long Xie's eyes sparkled when he saw this. This human woman seemed to want to save the person inside. However, she wasn't just trying to save the God-binding scale cage. Her attack would only cause the human to suffer an even stronger attack. A cunning look flashed across Long Xie's eyes. Stop. Don't even think about releasing that human. You won't be able to break my God-binding scale cage. Don't waste your time. Although he sounded angry, Long Xie was actually very happy. He wanted to provoke this human woman so that she could kill the human in the God-binding scale cage on his behalf. In any case, any external attack would be the same inside the God-binding scales. However, Bibidong turned around and glared at Long Xie. His eyes were glowing coldly. Long Xie was taken aback when he saw that Long Xie had stopped attacking evil. This human woman didn't seem to be fooled. If you really wanted to stop me, you should have attacked me directly instead of saying such nonsense. Bibidon stared coldly at Long Xie. Are you trying to provoke me into attacking your God-binding scale cage? How dare a beast try to deceive me? This cage should be able to absorb external attacks and cause damage to the people inside, right? When I arrived, I saw you attacking. Are you stupid? Long Xie. He looked at the woman who exuded an incomparably powerful aura. He could only think to himself, these humans are so cunning. Compared to that human brat just now, he was not inferior at all. Long Xie snorted. It doesn't matter. That human won't be able to live anyway. Given my attack and the God-binding scale cage, there's no way he'll survive. He should be a pile of mush by now. You want to save him? What a pity. If I had arrived earlier, I might have been able to save him. But now. At this point, Long Xie smiled smugly. Bibidon's pupils contracted when she heard that. She roared and her aura surged. Her eyes turned purplish-black, and her soul bones appeared on her body. Long Xie was stunned. This woman's aura seemed to be stronger than before. What was she trying to do? Was she trying to kill him? Long Xie stared at Bibidon in shock. He can't be dead. Bibidon's terrifying voice rang out. Other than me, no one can hurt him. Who do you think you are? If he's really dead, you would have retracted the God-binding scale cage to defend yourself. You wouldn't be acting like a bald dragon. Long Xie was stunned when he heard that. This woman's reaction was really fast. He couldn't fool her at all. Long Xie didn't know if the human was dead or not. However, the words, bald dragon, infuriated Long Xie. Despicable human. Even the sun doesn't dare to compete with my handsomeness. How dare you call me a bald dragon? In the next moment, 2 figures, one big and one small, shone brightly in the sky. The terrifying sounds of battle dyed the sky a mixture of blood and purple. Without the scales, Long Xie wasn't much weaker. Furthermore, those scales were extremely heavy. They weighed at least a few 100,000 kilograms. They were similar to Wang Feng's Xianming armor. Without the scales, his defense was weaker. However, Long Xie's speed and agility had increased greatly. Bibidon had a divine artifact. Now that he had activated his martial soul true body, he was even stronger than when he fought Wang Feng. He wasn't any weaker than Wang Feng. Soon, more and more wounds appeared on Long Xie's body. As a demigod, Bibidon had a divine artifact. With the Rakshasa demon scythe, he could really injure Long Xie. Unfortunately, the two of them had similar attribute. One of them was filled with evil and resentment. The other was filled with extremely evil and murderous energy. In essence, it was an energy attack that belonged to the evil type. Long Xie's body was very strange. He could absorb such energy. When Wang Feng used the god-killing spear, he was able to injure Long Xie, but Long Xie was able to absorb some of the murderous energy from the god-killing spear, which helped him. As a demigod, Bibidon had many powerful attacks. He could inflict great damage on Long Xie. However, some of his attacks would be absorbed. Long Xie, on the other hand, only used his pure strength to attack Bibidon. Long Xie could tell that this human woman was very strong. However, she was more powerful because of her divine artifact and divine artifact. In terms of pure strength, she wasn't very strong. Her body wasn't stronger than that human boy. Under such circumstances, the two sides were actually unable to do anything to each other in the battle. Long Xie was getting more and more injured, but his eyes were getting brighter and brighter. His injuries were severe, but he could absorb some of the energy from the attacks to replenish himself. Therefore, he was still able to gain the upper hand. There were also many wounds on Bibidong's body. Two of the spider legs on its back were broken, and the spider blades on its arms were full of bloody marks. There were also some cracks on her soul bone armor. As she hadn't passed the divine test, her soul bones hadn't formed the true Rakshasa divine armor yet. If this continued, the best outcome would be for both sides to be severely injured. Bang! Bibidong's figure slammed into the huge god-binding scales cage. On the other side, Long Xie's wings were also cut off by the demon scythe. He was in so much pain that he couldn't stop howling. Bibidon struggled to stand up. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was a little pale, and the emerald patterns on her forehead were a little dim. Right at this moment, it was as if she had crashed into the cage. A beam of intense light shot out from the god-imprisoning scale cage. The light was so bright that it illuminated the blood-red color on the outside of the god-imprisoning scale cage. Dong dong dong. Several sounds could be heard from the god-imprisoning scale cage. It was as if the cage was being attacked again. In the next moment, cracks appeared on the outside of the god-imprisoning scale cage. Streaks of light rushed out of the god-binding scales in a bid to outdo each other. However, the god-imprisoning scale cage didn't crack. Bibidon was pleasantly surprised when she saw this. She didn't think too much about it. She gathered all her strength into the demon scythe in her hand. Her 9 soul rings shone with different colors. She circulated her soul power to the maximum. She slashed the scythe at the crack in the cage. P.S. There's still 3 chapters left. I've been very tired lately. I need to rest. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.